Chapter 46-32. Shut up. Zhenjie roared, whether you enter Buddhism or not has nothing to do with me. If you interrupt me when I'm talking, do you believe that I'll castrate you? Even if you don't enter Buddhism, your group of dragon maidens won't care about you anymore. In an instant, Dragon Horse Zhenfeng gritted his teeth, not daring to make a single sound. Amitabha, Chunzong chanted and bitterly smiled. Zhenjie, you clearly have Buddha in your heart. Why do you always pretend that you don't have Buddha in your mouth? That's right, Master. It's fine as long as I have Buddha in my heart. Why do you care where I don't have Buddha? As Zhenjie spoke, he looked up at the sky and sneered, there are so many people here today. Let's go, Master. Zhenkong respectfully said, let's quicken our pace. The sun will set soon. Today is almost 300 years since Master left Longevity Town. Stepping into Longevity Town at sunset is the perfect time for my Buddha. All right. Hearing this, Chunzong was motivated again. He struggled to get up and walked towards Longevity Town. As the sun set, Chunzong and his disciple got closer to Longevity Town. When the afterglow of the setting sun disappeared, the entire land was shrouded in a thin layer of white. Chunzong had 1 foot in Longevity Town. Boom! At the west side of Longevity Town, a huge Buddha lotus appeared out of thin air. The Buddha radiance shot out from the Buddha lotus, illuminating Longevity Town and Crouching Bull Mountain like the sun. Amitabha, Amitabha. Chants of Buddha resounded from the Buddha lotus. Dang, dang, dang. The sound of a wooden fish hitting the ground could be heard. Amidst the sounds, the Buddha lotus slowly bloomed, and 9 colors shot into the sky. Within the 9 colors, heavenly dragons danced, heavenly maidens bounced back, and heavenly flowers fell from the sky. Scenes of Buddhas in small kiliakasms were born and extinguished in the light. Namo Amitabha. With a loud Buddhist chant, the Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha world exalted revealed his Buddha form from the void. In front of him, the Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva placed his palms together with a smile on his face. Behind the Buddha and Bodhisattva, there seemed to be countless arhats, Jyans, and other Dharma protectors accompanying them. Boom! Just as the Western Buddha Lord appeared, a clear sound came from the eastern horizon. A colorful cloud covered the eastern sky, and thousands of auspicious signs hung on the 4 sides of the cloud. Auspicious signs surged, dragons and phoenixes appeared, and the sounds of students chanting resounded through the sky. Along with this chanting, fist-sized inscriptions appeared one after another, condensing into words, sentences, articles in midair, and finally turning into a mountain of books and a sea of words. With the appearance of the mountain of books and sea of literature, a majestic pillar of energy descended from the void. Amidst the vibrations, Immortal Emperor Go Chen appeared on top of the 5-colored clouds with his emperor's robe and the emperor's sword hanging by his waist. As soon as Immortal Emperor Go Chen appeared, a dragon-shaped providence rushed out from the Longevity Town and circled around Immortal Emperor Go Chen a few times. Then, it turned into a seat and landed below him. As Immortal Emperor Go Chen sat down, Tai Bai Jinxing, who held a horsetail whisk, and Sun Jian, who held a 3-point, double-edged saber appeared beside him. Around the clouds, the generals of the Sun Palace also appeared with their weapons in their hands. Boom! With the appearance of the Eastern Immortal Emperor, another loud rumble came from the north of the Longevity Town. At this time, the northern horizon was filled with stars, and countless pillars of light descended, shaking the entire sky. Under the stars and moon, 2 demon race great sages that were several thousand feet tall appeared. Weren't they the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix and the Golden Rock? As soon as the 2 demon race great sages appeared, the starlight within 100 miles instantly gathered. Although they didn't bring any other demon race members, nor did they have the Immortal Palace or the Thunder Monastery's ceremonial guards, the starlight was like an ocean, revolving around the 2 great sages' bodies in a profound manner. The majestic and boundless aura they exuded was comparable to the Immortal Palace and the Buddhist sect. Amitabha. Greetings, benefactors. The Dipankara archaic Buddha placed his palms together and bowed. This emperor greets you as well. Immortal Emperor Go Chen stood up from his seat and bowed. The Phoenix Sage and the Rock Sage transformed into their human forms and bowed as well. Greetings, everyone. After the Confucians, Buddhists, and demons of the three continents finished their greetings, immortal Emperor Go-Chen spoke again. 300 years ago, we watched Chuanzang begin his Nirvana Sutra seeking. Now, 300 years later, we've personally come to the Longevity Town to welcome Chuanzang's triumphant return. 300 years have passed in the blink of an eye. TSK. The Golden Rock said with disdain, "Old man Go-Chen, stop showing off your literary talent. 300 years is merely 300 days to your immortal palace. Of course, you'd feel that it's only a blink of an eye. Ha ha." The immortal Emperor Go-Chen smiled and didn't mind. The Golden Rock looked at the Dipankara archaic Buddha world and mocked, "Old man Dipankara, where's Mahavairokkana? I heard that he had a falling out with the Maitreya Buddha. Is he too ashamed to come to the Longevity Town?" Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world exalt placed his palms together and said with an expressionless face, "Rock sage, you're wrong. The Mahavairokkana Buddha world exalt is currently comprehending the withering glory Buddhism and has no time to come. Moreover, the Mahavairokkana Buddha world exalt is the current Buddha Lord. Ever since Chuanzang stepped into the Longevity Town, the Nirvana Sutra seeking had already become a thing of the past. Since the past has passed, it's only natural for me, the past Buddha Lord, to come and welcome him. Why is there a need for the current Buddha Lord to come? What are you talking about?" The rock sage waved his hand and said, "If that's the case, the Nirvana Sutra seeking is a thing of the past. However, the Buddha light illumination is a thing of the future. You should let the Maitreya Buddha come. Why didn't you let him come? Are you unable to order him around? Forget it, forget it." Immortal Emperor Go-Chen hurriedly tried to smooth things over. He smiled and said, "Today's main character is Chuanzang. He has walked for 300 years, and his merit has reached perfection." Boom. Before Immortal Emperor Go-Chen could finish his words, another thunderous boom resounded from the southern horizon of the Longevity Town. This thunderous boom was so loud that it shook the earth and the mountains. Then, a huge bolt of lightning flickered in the sky. Within the lightning, Xiao Hua, who was dressed in a Daoist robe, walked over. Xiao Hua's figure had already revealed itself. Within a radius of several hundred kilometers, lightning surged out like a tide. The thunderbolts within the lightning were like dancing dragons and spiraling phoenixes. Layers upon layers of life and death phenomena rushed out from the flickering thunderbolts, transforming into obscure fluctuations that were extremely mysterious as they spread out in all direction. Within the ripples, the thunder reverend, Wen Chu, and the heavenly being stepped out. As soon as the three of them appeared, another sky-piercing aura surged towards them. How can my fortune gate not participate in such a grand occasion? Xiao Hua stood in midair and said proudly, "Greetings, Dragon Master Xiao." The golden-winged Great Peng did not dare to be negligent and saluted first. His posture was completely different from before. Feng Wu also smiled and bowed. "It has only been a few days. Greetings, fellow Daoist Xiao. Greetings, Sage Peng and Sage Feng. This Xiao greets you." Xiao Hua smiled and bowed in return. "Oh, so it's Master Xiao." Immortal Emperor Go-Chen slapped his forehead and laughed. This emperor forgot that the Longevity Town is in Yu Province. Your soaring Dragon Mountain Range is also in Yu Province. Master Xiao should also come and observe the ceremony. "Greetings, Immortal Emperor." Xiao Hua looked at Immortal Emperor Go-Chen and said with a fake smile, "This Xiao has not seen Immortal Emperor for a few days. I miss you." "Ari, yes." Immortal Emperor Go-Chen's skin was unusually thick. He acted as if nothing had happened and said with a smile, "It has only been half a day since we parted at the southern heavenly gate. This emperor has already missed you. Master Xiao, why don't you stay in my immortal palace as well?" "That won't do." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "This Xiao has no virtue and can't lead the scholars. If the immortal emperor is interested, why don't you invite the 4 great families to stay?" "Haha, this emperor thinks so too." Immortal Emperor Go-Chen knew what Xiao Hua was talking about. Unfortunately, he still pretended not to know and said with a smile, "It's a pity that they feel that my immortal palace is too small to accommodate them. Greetings, Dipankara archaic Buddha." Xiao Hua could not be bothered with immortal Emperor Go Chen and cupped his hands towards the Dipankara archaic Buddha. This old monk greets Daoist Xiao. The Dipankara archaic Buddha returned the greeting and said, "This old monk thanks Daoist for coming to the longevity town to observe the ceremony." Well said, well said. Seeing that the Dipankara archaic Buddha didn't welcome him and spoke with a cold tone, Xiao Hua naturally knew that the Dipankara archaic Buddha already knew about Zhenjie and Zhenkong's origins and even knew that he was good friends with the Maitreya Buddha. He was just casually saying this and was about to look at Chunzong. At this moment, the golden-winged great rock seemed to have noticed something and suddenly shouted, "Old man Go Chen, isn't this scholar the owner of your immortal palace's literature palace? Why is he standing beside Daoist Xiao?" The golden-winged great rock was purposely making things difficult for immortal Emperor Go Chen. However, immortal Emperor Go Chen smiled and said, "The owner of the literature palace is good friends with Master Xiao. They want to find the heavenly punishment prison crystal that this emperor used to imprison Xin Xin. Therefore, this emperor allowed the owner of the literature palace to help Master Xiao." "Oh, Go Chen, you're really heartless. Back then, the 9th princess only made a small mistake. Even now, you still haven't let her out." The golden-winged great rock laughed and said, "Is the 9th princess your biological daughter? Xin Xin made a mistake and violated the immortal law. Even if she's my daughter, this emperor still has to punish her." Immortal Emperor Go Chen said seriously, "This emperor will use virtue to conquer the world and rule the world. Your Majesty." At this moment, Tai Bai Jinxing, who was sitting in front of immortal Emperor Go Chen, suddenly appeared and bowed. "This old subject has something to say." Immortal Emperor Go Chen was stunned. He looked at Tai Bai Jinxing and nodded, "Please speak." Tai Bai Jinxing smiled and said, "The 9th princess was originally in the wrong. After being imprisoned by your Majesty for hundreds of years, the suffering she suffered was already enough to make up for her previous sins. Moreover, this huge mistake has been made up for, and the 5-Qis unification art has reached perfection. In addition, today, Chunzong brought his disciples back to the longevity town, and the sutra seeking extreme happiness has also reached perfection. My immortal palace can be considered to have 2 simultaneous blessings. Today, this old subject boldly requests your Majesty to let the 9th princess out. Isn't this a good thing? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, vote for it, vote, gift, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4633. HMPH. Immortal Emperor Go Chen snorted. Instead of looking at Tai Bai Jinxing, he looked at Xiao Hua and said coldly, "Although Xin Xin's sins have been reduced, a few hundred years isn't enough for her to repent. Let's talk about this later." "Oh." Tai Bai Jinxing was stunned. He looked at immortal Emperor Go Chen in confusion and hurriedly said respectfully, "Yes, I understand. I didn't think as thoroughly as your Majesty. I was wrong." Old Go Chen. Xiao Hua was truly gnashing his teeth. Tai Bai Jinxing was good at guessing the emperor's will, so he must have seen something, or perhaps he received a hint from the empress. Thus, he used the grand occasion of sutra seeking in extreme bliss to ask immortal Emperor Go Chen to pardon Xin Xin. However, immortal Emperor Go Chen obviously wanted to make things difficult for him, so he did not agree. Xiao Hua regretted his uninvited visit. However, just as he was cursing in his heart and was about to speak, he looked at the ground again. At this moment, Chunzong and the others were standing in the longevity town. The ground was already covered with yellow soil, and the streets were filled with clean water. They were looking at Xiao Hua and the others in a daze. Seeing Chuanzang, seeing the hardships on Chuanzang's face, and even the fine lines at the corners of his eyes and the slight knife-like wrinkles between his brows, Xiao Hua's heart ached. He instantly thought of the child in his mother's arms in front of Yellow Flower Ridge. His thoughts of competing with immortal Emperor Go Chen had already dissipated. Today's main character was Jiang Liuer. From today onwards, he would have the time and strength to compete with Go Chen. "Chunzong, you've worked hard," Xiao Hua said with a smile. Chunzong opened his mouth but didn't say anything. He nodded slightly towards Xiao Hua and put his palms together before kneeling towards the Dipankara archaic Buddha. "Namo Amitabha, disciple Chunzong greets the Dipankara archaic Buddha." 300 years ago, disciple obeyed my Buddha's decree and went to the Thunder Temple to obtain the Mahayana Buddhist scripture Sanzang. I have taken in 4 disciples along the way, namely Zhen Kong, Zhen Han, Zhen Feng, and Zhen Jie. Under the escort of these 4 disciples, I walked from the town of Longevity to the Thunderclap Temple, and from the Thunderclap Temple back to the town of Longevity. Throughout the journey, I have not used any of my powers and have relied solely on my own strength. I have completed my Buddha's decree and obtained the Sanzang Buddhist scripture to the town of Longevity. Now, I have submitted the decree to the Dipankara Archaic Buddha, the World Lord, for inspection. May my Buddha's light illuminate the hidden immortal continent. Amitabha. Seeing how Chuanzang ignored Xiaohua and Immortal Emperor Go Chen and only kowtowed to him, the Dipankara Archaic Buddha smiled faintly and chanted, Chuanzang, you've worked hard and contributed greatly. You've nourished the world with Buddhism essence like rain. However, if you want to talk about handing over the edict, it seems that you shouldn't hand it over here. You should hand it over at the place where you got it, the Buddhist edict. Amitabha, this disciple will follow the teachings of the Dipankara Archaic Buddha. Chuanzang came to a realization. After kowtowing, he stood up and looked at his disciples, who were only bowing respectfully, and said, Disciples, follow your master to the Rivertide Temple. Yes, master. All the disciples answered carefully. Not to mention Zhenkong, even Zhanjie had restrained his wildness and covered most of his face with his 2 big ears. Not bad, not bad. Xiaohua didn't know what the others were thinking. However, seeing how Zhenkong's previous arrogance had disappeared, Xiaohua felt a little happy. While the heaven-pacifying staff wasn't as heaven-defying as the 5 elements wishful heaven-reaching staff, it was still a powerful weapon. Xiaohua didn't want to let a fire ape, who had a murderous heart, use it to create trouble for himself. Seeing how Zhenkong was behaving, Xiaohua started making plans. Zhenkong is a fire ape. It isn't appropriate for him to become a disciple of Yuanya. After Zhenkong obtains the Buddha fruit, I'll let him enter my fortune gate. Chuanzang measured his final merit step by step. With the Buddhists, Taoists, Confucians, and demons guarding the Longevity town, there probably wasn't anyone in this world who could stop the final step of the sutra seeking extreme bliss. However, right at this moment, in the south, where Xiaohua came from, another rumbling sound resounded. From the horizon, a rainbow bridge several miles long rushed over from the darkened sky. This rainbow bridge was different from the usual ones as it was black and white. Every time the black and white rainbow bridge rushed over the horizon, a chi explosion would occur. The chi explosion was continuous like the beating of a drum. When the rainbow bridge got closer, 3 cultivators appeared on the rainbow bridge. The one in front was dressed in emperor's attire and wore a dark yellow crown on his head. Of the 2 cultivators behind him, the one on the left was dressed in a bright yellow daoist robe with a feathered crown on his head. He had a tall stature and an ancient face, and he held a 5-colored jade scepter in his hand. The one on the right was dressed in a dark yellow daoist robe. He had snow-white hair, and his eyes were like lightning. He had an arrogant expression on his face, and his hands were placed behind his back. He was like a shadow following behind the emperor-attired cultivator. This person patted his head, and 2 black and white light pillars shot into the sky. A huge black and white dome appeared in the sky, and the aura of a supreme cultivator surged towards the Longevity town like a tsunami. Oh! Why is it him? The Go Chen Immortal Emperor, the golden-winged Great Rock, and the Dipankara Archaic Buddha were puzzled. They didn't know when a supreme cultivator had appeared in the hidden immortal mainland. When the cultivator in front revealed himself, the 3 of them were shocked. They looked at each other and had the same thought. Xiaohua looked at the newcomer coldly. This face and aura were the same as the one he saw in the light projection when he came out of the Star Moon Palace. Now that he saw the black and white light pillar, how could Xiaohua not know that this was the primordial chaos ancestor? However, Xiaohua and the Go Chen Immortal Emperor were equally shocked. When others entered the Star Moon Palace, they would only have the opportunity to become a literary saint. This primordial chaos ancestor, on the other hand, had directly reached the Mahayana realm. Moreover, looking at his body, he must have obtained the opportunity in the Star Moon Palace. This guy's luck is pretty good. Xiao Hua curled his lips and muttered, "Even this old man is jealous of him." When he looked at the primordial chaos ancestor and saw the shocked expressions on the experts' faces, he felt proud of himself. In his heart, he was the one who had benefited the most from this trip to the Star Moon Palace. Damn it! Before the primordial chaos ancestor could speak, the Go-Chen Immortal Emperor glared at the cultivator in the bright yellow Daoist robe and said, "Daoist Rider Crane, you left the Penglai Immortal Realm without permission and violated the Immortal Palace's laws. How dare you appear before me?" Daoist Rider Crane? Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and immediately understood that the cultivator holding the Jade Scepter was the Daoist Rider Crane from the Lianghui Ridge who was ranked second on the Shenhuang list. His cultivation had already reached the mid-stage of the Tribulation Passing Stage and was indeed more powerful than Xiao Hua's disciples. He was qualified to occupy the second position. After hearing the Go-Chen Immortal Emperor's reprimand, Daoist Rider Crane's gaze swept across indifferently. He did not even have the interest to open his mouth and immediately closed his eyes again. "Haha, Go-Chen." The primordial chaos ancestor in front laughed and said, "Although your Penglai Immortal Realm is called an immortal realm, it's actually a prison that imprisons the experts of our Taoism. If not for the fear of being hunted down by the Immortal Palace, who would be willing to stay in there? Who in the Sky-Bearing Palace would be afraid of your Immortal Palace? Just wait and see. Other than Daoist Rider Crane, there will be more Taoism cultivators who will leave the Penglai Immortal Realm and join my Sky-Bearing Palace." The Go-Chen Immortal Emperor's face flashed with brilliance and said coldly, "If that's the case, then I'll cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to avoid future trouble." "Haha, is that so? Since you have such thoughts, then please." The primordial chaos ancestor displayed his unscrupulous nature and laughed, "Go ahead and attack. The more you kill, the more they will submit to me." The Go-Chen Immortal Emperor glanced at Xiao Hua and laughed, "If it was in the past, your Sky-Bearing Palace might be their only choice. But now, from what I see, the Fortune Gate is my Immortal Palace's only strong opponent. The Sky-Bearing Palace that you just built is not even comparable to a single hair of the Fortune Gate." "Old man Go-Chen." The primordial chaos ancestor laughed loudly. He looked at Xiao Hua and said, "Don't show off such childish tricks here. The sowing discord in your words is too strong. It's not worthy of your identity as an immortal emperor." This old man has seen Daoist Xiao before and also saw the blood steely of his Taoism in the Bronze Pillar country. This old man is very gratified. After this old man was suppressed, my Taoism has risen again. The special thing is that Daoist Xiao's cultivation far surpasses this old man's, and his Fortune Gate is famous in the 3 continents. It is also the flag of my Taoism. If possible, this old man is willing to cooperate with the Fortune Gate with my Sky-Bearing Palace. For the glory of my Taoism, this old man is willing to make any sacrifice. This old man is willing to fight against the Immortals and Buddhas to the end, even if I am suppressed again." The primordial chaos ancestor's words were very passionate, but Xiao Hua felt that it was a joke. If the primordial chaos ancestor was willing to make sacrifices, why would he need to build the Sky-Bearing Palace? However, the current Xiao Hua was not the Xiao Hua of the past. He laughed and said, "Daoist primordial chaos ancestor, this Xiao's thoughts are different from yours. This Xiao believes that whether it is the Confucian cultivators, the Buddhist sect, the Taoism, or even the demon race, they are all ants under the heavenly Tao. They are all cultivators who cultivate for their own goals. Our enemies are the heavens, the earth, and the heavenly Tao, not each other. If you put yourself in a position of opposition to the Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect, wouldn't the Taoism be the mortal enemy of the Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect? How can my Taoism prosper?" The primordial chaos ancestor's face turned ugly, and he frowned and said, "Daoist Xiao, have you not heard of the saying, people who walk different paths cannot work together? My Taoism's cultivation is different from that of the Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect. How can we coexist? It is precisely because they are different that we can coexist." Xiao Hua said curiously, "If there is competition, then it will not be easy to coexist. Moreover." Speaking until here, Xiao Hua looked at the Scholar Palace beside him and smiled. "This is the Scholar Palace's master, and also this Xiao's good friend. When we cultivate, we often verify what we have learned with each other. The Taoism and Confucian cultivators are actually interconnected in many areas. Only by referring to each other can we improve together. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 4634. HMPH. While Xiao Hua was speaking, another cultivator wearing a black Daoist robe coldly snorted and said, Daoist Master Xiao's cultivation is profound. Aside from the Grand Mist Ancestor, this Daoist is half a person that I admire the most. However, Daoist Xiao. He, now that he's the lightning master of the immortal palace, I don't even admire him anymore. Then, the cultivator said to the Grand Mist Ancestor, Sect Master, I don't have any objections if you want to cooperate with any of our Taoism's cultivators. However, if you want to cooperate with those Daoist sects, I'll be the first to object. The Grand Mist Ancestor frowned and scolded, Dark Knight, Daoist Xiao is our Taoism's Grand Ascension Stage Taoism. His fortune gate defeated the 4 great families. How could he be? There are many people in this world who would forsake their principles for beauty. The cultivator called Dark Knight replied bluntly, Who knows what Daoist Xiao would do for the North Star's 9th princess, Dark Knight of the Incinerating Glass Pond? 3rd on the profound yellow list. When Xiao Hua heard the Grand Mist Ancestor's words, he understood the origin of this cultivator. Looking at Anya, Xiao Hua understood that the Grand Mist Ancestor and the others had already discussed these words beforehand. However, when Xiao Hua looked around, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In front of the Confucian cultivators, the Buddhist sect, and the demon race, the most unpromising Tao sect, and the sky-bearing palace, which had just been established, actually dared to boast shamelessly. Amitabha. At this moment, the Dipankara archaic Buddha spoke with a bitter expression on his face, Amitabha. Amitabha, you have been cultivating peacefully in the Pure Land World's incineration glass pond for so many years. Our Buddhism sect has never disturbed you. Isn't it good for you to cultivate in peace? Why? Dipankara. Dark Knight said coldly, I have been cultivating in the incinerating glass pond for so many years. Indeed, I've been doing much better than those Taoism cultivators in the hidden immortal continent. However, I can't say that I've been peacefully. From time to time, the heavenly guardian of the Thunder Sound Temple would come to check on I to see if I was quiet. Whenever I was not at the burning glass pond, he would immediately warn me to cultivate in the burning glass pond quietly. Even if the guardian heavenly king of the Thunder Sound Temple did not come, the monks from the nearby temples would still come to visit. Whether it was spiritual wine or spiritual pills, I would have to serve them well. I was a Daoist cultivator of the 8th grade of Essence Force. Even when facing a monk who had formed his nascent soul, I still had to put on a smiling face. How can I cultivate in peace? Amitabha. Excellent, excellent. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord chanted Buddha's name. He looked at the river tide temple and saw Chunjing holding his monk staff. He steadied himself and stepped into the temple, saying, I hope the Buddhist light of the sutra praying nirvana can illuminate benefactor's heart and let benefactor see the true compassion of my Buddhism towards the world. I have no interest in Buddhism's compassion. Dark Knight snorted and said, My sect master is the true prodigy who is well versed in both the past and the present. Not to mention that no Daoist cultivator can compare to him, even among Confucian cultivators, it would be hard to find a match for him. Therefore, I feel that, my sect master is the best candidate to lead all Taoism under the heavens. Only his great talent and bold vision could truly bring the Daoist sect to glory. Not those who are secretly colluding with Confucian cultivators. In the end, Dark Knight's words were all directed at Xiao Hua. Hearing this, Xiao Hua sneered, anger rising in his chest. However, today was the day of Chuanjing's accomplishment. Xiao Hua couldn't disturb him casually. Moreover, in front of the immortal palace, Buddhism, and Great Sage Hall, how could Xiao Hua let them laugh at Taoism's internal strife? Looking at the Grand Mist Ancestor's smiling face, Xiao Hua didn't understand what he meant. After all, they hadn't talked about cooperation yet. There wasn't a need to be so hostile, right? However, All of a sudden, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat as if he had thought of something. He sighed inwardly. Sigh, this Grand Mist ancestor is too scheming. In order to make this Xiao not suspect the Xiao Empire, he's actually bluffing here, making this Xiao Hua worry that he'll force me to focus my attention here while he secretly makes a move there. How could he know that this Xiao Hua has long known that Prince Lan, ignorant child Immortal Emperor Go Chen didn't mind the small matter and said coldly, "What do you know? How can someone who can be called Thunder Master by my immortal palace be an ordinary cultivator? That Grand Mist brat is only a clown suppressed in the Yin-Yang Illustrated Handbook. How can he be compared to Thunder Master Xiao? Amitabha." The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord said, "Grand Mist ancestor, are you here to observe the Longevity Town ceremony? If so, my Thunder Sound Temple welcomes you. If not, my Thunder Sound Temple doesn't welcome you. Please leave." "No." The Grand Mist ancestor smiled, "I'm not here to observe the Longevity Town ceremony." "Then please leave." The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord said calmly, "Otherwise, I won't hold back anymore. I'm here to observe the hidden immortal continent's first golden body Buddha statue's consecration." The Grand Mist ancestor wasn't nervous at all. Instead, he replied word by word. In an instant, the joyous atmosphere became tense. No matter if it was the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord or the immortal Emperor Go Chen, both of them had an awkward expression on their faces. Although the Sutra Seeking of Nirvana was a joint venture between the Immortal Palace and the Thunder Sound Temple, Chuanzang could preach in the hidden immortal continent, and Zhenhan could preach Confucianism in the pure paradise world. Today's Sutra Seeking of Nirvana was a joint event between the Immortal Palace and the Thunder Sound Temple. However, the biggest winner of the Sutra Seeking of Nirvana was the Thunder Sound Temple. After the Sutra Seeking of Nirvana was completed, the hidden immortal continent's first golden body Buddha statue could be consecrated and receive the worship of thousands of kind-hearted men and women. The Thunder Sound Temple could also preach Mahayana Buddhist scriptures in the hidden immortal continent. If the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord didn't mention this matter, the immortal Emperor Go Chen wouldn't mention it as well. If the Grand Mist ancestor didn't mention it, everyone would just consecrate the Nanwu Great Merciful Buddha World Sound Bodhisattva's golden body without a single word. Now that the Grand Mist ancestor had spoken, he had exposed the scar that no one wanted to talk about. Moreover, he had even sowed discord between the seemingly harmonious Confucianism and Buddhism. Fortunately, at this moment, chants of Namo Maitreya Buddha, Namo Amitabha Buddha, Namo Dipankara Archaic Buddha. Amidst the chants of Buddhist mantras, heavenly flowers sprinkled down from the night sky, and countless heavenly maidens flew out gracefully amidst the starlight. Rings of dazzling Buddhist radiances resembled the rising sun, sprinkling all around the Longevity Town. This phenomenon instantly attracted everyone's attention. Chunzong stepped into the River Tide Temple, and lotuses bloomed with every step he took. When he entered the Great Strength Hall and arrived before the Buddhist shrine, the radiance reached its peak, and the entire Great Strength Hall disappeared. It was as if the entire sky was filled with Buddhist radiances and lotuses. All of the Buddhist radiances and lotuses condensed into a Buddha's golden body. Pious and kind faces of men and women were revealed within the Buddhist radiances, and everyone was chanting Amitabha Buddha. Chunzong's expression was unusually calm, and he didn't show any signs of agitation. His eyes were filled with Sanskrit words. Strangely, although his gaze landed on the Buddhist shrine, it seemed like he was looking at the Buddha's golden body. In such a strange situation, the unruly Zhen Kong and the unruly Zhen Jie were also very careful. They didn't dare to step into the Great Strength Hall, and only stood outside the hall, carefully watching. Chunzong respectfully walked to the front of the Buddhist shrine, and carefully took out the Buddhist decree from his chest. He gently flicked the old yellow decree that didn't have any dust on it, and then knelt in front of the Buddhist shrine. He kowtowed 9 times and chanted, Amitabha Buddha, disciple Chunzong was fortunate enough to not disappoint you. After 300 years, disciple returned and brought the Thunder Temple's Mahayana Sanzang to the hidden immortal continent. Today, disciple will present the Buddhist decree to Buddha. Chunzong respectfully presented the Buddhist decree, but before it could be sent into the shrine, boom, Another blazing sun appeared between the eyebrows of the previous Buddha statue. The Buddhist light from the blazing sun fell on the Buddhist decree, and the Buddhist decree turned into millions of small worlds. These small worlds were like a tide, and they hovered above Chunzong, Zhenkong, Zhenjie, Zhenfeng, and Zhenhan. A vast voice filled with mercy sounded in everyone's ears. Chunzong has completed the Sutra of Bliss, and has benefited the good people of the hidden immortal continent. He is bestowed with millions of merits, and has become the Xuanji meritorious Buddha. As the voice fell, more than half of the small worlds flowed towards Chunzong like a river. Whoosh! With a soft sound, a ray of light appeared behind Chunzong's head, and the Buddhist light swept the small worlds into it. In an instant, the Buddhist light shone brightly again, and the Sanskrit chants sounded again. Although Zhenkong is a demon, he wholeheartedly protected Chunzong's Sutra of Bliss, and along the way, he eliminated demons and subdued demons, and has made great contributions. He is bestowed with millions of merits, and has become the vanquishing demon Buddha. Similarly, the Buddhist light swept the remaining half of the small worlds into the back of Zhenkong's head, and the same ray of light appeared, and the Sanskrit chants sounded again. Oh! Seeing this, Xiao Hua was overjoyed, and he almost clapped his hands and praised in his heart, "The Mahavairochana revered Buddha is fair." Yuan Tongtian was the first to escort Jiang Liuer, and he contributed the most along the way. In my opinion, the Mahavairochana revered Buddha gave him the title of Arhat, but who would have thought that he would actually give him a Buddhist position? How rare! Immediately after, the Buddhist decree came again, and Zhenjie became the heaven-vigilant Arhat Buddha fruit, Zhenhan became the benevolent Vajra Buddha fruit, even the laziest dragon horse Zhenfeng became the 8th-division heavenly dragon Buddha fruit. Naturally, Zhenfeng, who became the 8th-division heavenly dragon, also shed his dragon horse skin and appeared as a true dragon. Regarding this result, Zhenjie didn't have any objections. Although he was the strongest, he came late, and Zhenkong had already protected Chunzong for most of the journey. Thus, after Chunzong and the others received the Buddhist decree, they all knelt down and kowtowed, saying, "This disciple thanks the Buddhist Lord for his mercy." P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and reward it. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 46-35. Boom boom boom. Bursts of Buddhist aura surged, and the huge golden Buddha statue turned into a huge Buddhist lotus, and in another moment, the huge Buddhist lotus turned into hundreds of millions of even smaller Buddhist lotuses, rushed into the night sky, and disappeared in all directions of the hidden immortal continent. Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord saw the Buddhist lotus vanish, and the tidal current temple reappeared in the night sky. He pressed his palms together and said, "Your Majesty, today is a joyous occasion for my Thunder Sound Temple and the Immortal Palace. Can you work together with me to take down the mortal world object that is obstructing the sound of Namo Great Compassion, and allow me to consecrate the first Buddha statue in the hidden immortal continent?" Immortal Emperor Gaochen squinted his eyes. According to their previous discussion, there was no such thing. After the Mahavairochana World Lord's Buddhist decree bestowed upon Chuanzang, the Dipankara archaic Buddha should consecrate Nanwu Merciful Guanyin. Immortal Emperor Gaochen didn't have to do anything, nor did he have to say anything. Perhaps, the Dipankara archaic Buddha's world lord thought of doing something unnecessary because of the primordial chaos ancestor's word. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen wanted to reject it. However, the Dipankara archaic Buddha world's words were so righteous that Immortal Emperor Go-Chen couldn't think of any reason to reject it. Seeing that the Dipankara archaic Buddha world had already landed in front of the golden Buddha statue, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen could only follow suit. Rise. The Go-Chen Immortal Emperor and the Dipankara archaic Buddha looked at each other and waved their hands at the same time. The silk cloth had already been removed from Namo Great Merciful Guanyin's Buddha statue. In the night, the 99 jong tall Buddha statue was finally revealed. The benevolent appearance of the Buddha statue caused Xiao Hua to sigh with emotion in his heart. The real and fake Si Hang were all appearances. The real Guan Yin Bodhisattva was the real one. Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord chanted and said, "In my name, I erect the statue of my Buddhism. Namo Great Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva's golden body shall emit Buddhist radiance. May the benevolence of my Buddha be gathered on Guanyin's body, and save millions of Buddhists. As he spoke, the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord raised his right hand, and pressed his thumb, a dazzling Buddha seal, from head to toe, the golden Buddha statue. The Buddha's radiance was different from the previous Buddha statue. First, the Buddha's radiance from head to toe, golden body, from head to toe of the Buddha's radiance of Buddha, of the Buddha's Buddha statue, forming a huge funnel of Buddha. The of Buddha's of Buddha was of Guanyin the world. The Dipankara archaic Buddha was a little surprised to see how different the consecration this time was. However, when he saw the Buddha statue's translucent Buddha radiance and the power of faith descending upon it, the Buddha statue became even more lifelike. Only then did he relax and clasped his palms together. Excellent, excellent. With the power of Buddha, it's time to deliver all living beings from torment. However, before his Buddha fire could land on the ground, an extremely profound fluctuation was emitted from the Buddha statue, which was brimming with the power of faith. As soon as this fluctuation was emitted, it transcended space and landed on Xiao Hua's body. As this fluctuation descended, the surging power of faith changed its direction and landed on Xiao Hua's head. Then, Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha. Namo Amitabha Buddha. Namo Maitreya Buddha. A series of Buddhist chants resounded, and the power of faith poured into Xiao Hua's head. Buddhas of Buddha radiance shone from Xiao Hua's body once again, and Sanskrit chants resounded once more. Another phenomenon of Buddha fruit appeared under everyone's astonishment. Not good. As soon as the fluctuation was emitted, Xiao Hua could already feel the crystalline Godhead in his mind trembling slightly. His expression immediately changed, and he knew that something had happened. Unfortunately, before he could activate any abilities, the fluctuation had already landed on his crystalline Godhead and triggered the Buddha fruit. However, Xiao Hua's of Buddha fruit was different from the Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva. No radiance appeared behind Xiao Hua's head, and the endless power of faith simply disappeared after landing on the back of his head. This is. Not only was the Dipankara archaic Buddha shocked, but even the golden-winged great rock, immortal Emperor Go-Chen, and the primordial mist ancestor were shocked. The primordial mist ancestor even felt a hint of joy in his heart, thinking that this was the Buddhism sect's secret move. Boom! As the fluctuation landed on the crystalline Godhead flickered with a faint golden radiance. As soon as the golden radiance appeared, the fluctuation changed again and quickly shrunk back. At the same time, the Buddha light on the Buddha statue's golden body emitted a chaotic sound, and an even brighter Buddha light surged upwards. When the golden radiance dissipated, everyone's gaze landed on the Buddha statue's face, and they were all dumbfounded. This was because the Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva's appearance was no different from Xiao Hua's. The primordial mist ancestor even turned his head to look at Xiao Hua, then at the Buddha statue's golden body, and then at Xiao Hua again. His head spun like a rattle drum. This. The Dipankara archaic Buddha opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. He even forgot to recite the Buddha's name. Ha, I understand now. The gloomy immortal Emperor Go-Chen was the first to come to his senses. He clapped his hands and laughed. That benevolent Hang who stopped the Heavenly Cave River Dragon race in the Longevity Town and used a Buddhist artifact to collect the Liao River's water was actually Thunder Master Xiao's transformation. No wonder Thunder Master Xiao wasn't there when benevolent Hang appeared, and Thunder Master Xiao only appeared after benevolent Hang left. Congratulations Thunder Master Xiao, congratulations Thunder Sound Temple. Ha. The immortal Emperor Go-Chen had vented his anger. He was forced by the Thunder Sound Temple to use the sutra seeking extreme bliss. However, the Thunder Sound Temple had calculated everything, and it ended up benefiting Xiao Hua. Although the immortal Emperor Go-Chen didn't gain anything, the Thunder Sound Temple had lost a lot. How could he not be happy? Amitabha. The Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva hurriedly said, "This Buddha statue's golden body isn't mine." Strained. The golden-winged great rock laughed. "Little monk, Didn't you see the power of faith in the hidden immortal continent? Didn't it all fall into Daoist Xiao's body? Doesn't this mean that he is the real Namo great compassionate Guanyin Bodhisattva? It doesn't matter if he is a Buddha or not, as long as he is the Guanyin Bodhisattva of all living Buddhas. Oh, this saint still remembers your Buddha saying, form is emptiness, emptiness is form? Daoist Xiao has a Buddhist heart, so why do you care if he is a Buddha or not? Also, the immortal Emperor Go Chen added fuel to the fire. My immortal palace recognizes this Buddha statue's golden body. As for the appearance of this Buddha statue, my immortal palace doesn't care. If your Buddhist sect changes the Buddha statue's golden body again, you can only use the sutra seeking extreme bliss again. The Grand Mist ancestor's expression was complicated. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but when he looked at the Daoist rider crane and the Dark Night Child, he didn't know what to say. The truth that Xiao Hua was the Namo great compassionate Guanyin Bodhisattva was the biggest and most laughable secret they had ever seen in their lives. Namo Amitabha. Seeing the power of faith continuously entering Xiao Hua's body, the Dipankara archaic Buddha's benevolent expression on the Buddha statue's golden body was vivid and lifelike. Thinking about Xiao Hua, the Dipankara archaic Buddha immediately made a decision. He politely put his palms together and bowed to Xiao Hua. Congratulations to the Guanyin Bodhisattva for achieving the Buddha fruit. Namo Amitabha. Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva also stepped forward and bowed. Manjushri greets senior apprentice brother Guanyin. This. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If Xiao Hua hadn't cultivated to the Mahayana realm, he wouldn't mind becoming the Guanyin Bodhisattva. However, now that he was a Taoism's supreme cultivator, he didn't care about the Buddha fruit. However, he had done a lot of good deeds, and when the Buddha statue's golden body was consecrated, he finally achieved the Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Amitabha. Xiao Hua was quite familiar with Buddhism's etiquette. He raised his hand and helped the Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva up. You and I are old acquaintances. There's no need to be so polite. Senior apprentice brother has just attained the Buddha fruit. You can go with the Buddha of Xuanji Merit and the victorious devil-vanquishing Buddha to the Thunder Sound Temple to meet the Mahavirokana World Lord. Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva smiled. Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand. Forget it, forget it. I won't be going to the Thunder Sound Temple. At this moment, a voice filled with joy and determination said, Amitabha, Dipankara archaic Buddha, I won't be going to the Thunder Sound Temple either. I'll be going to the west to seek scriptures. Although this voice wasn't loud, the Buddha lights that had disappeared immediately surged out once again and covered the entire Longevity town. This time, the Buddha lights were slightly different from before. Each Buddha light condensed into a tiny Buddha lotus, and on each lotus sat a smiling Buddha. The Buddha's face couldn't be seen clearly, and the grade of the lotus was unknown. The Buddha Lord's Great Wish. This is the Buddha Lord's Great Wish. It's comparable to the Namo Great Wish, the Ksitagarbha Bodhisattva's Great Wish. Seeing such a Buddha light phenomenon, Xiao Hua was stunned. Like everyone else, he focused his attention on the source of this voice. It came from Chuanzang, who had just attained the 4 stars meritorious Buddha fruit. Ah! Everyone, the demons, and the Buddhas were all shocked. An indescribable feeling arose in their hearts, and they almost blurted it out. What's going on? Is today destined to be recorded in the annals of the 3 continents? Everyone knew that Xiao Hua wouldn't go to the Thunder Monastery. Not to mention that a Daoist Mahayana realm cultivator entering the Thunder Monastery was equivalent to handing his life to the Virokana world sovereign. Just the fact that Xiao Hua had ambushed the Buddhist sect in the Longevity town made him too embarrassed to appear in front of the Virokana world sovereign. But, what was Chuanzang the Buddha of Xuanji Meritorious Virtue up to? What was he up to this time? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-36. Namo Wisdom Manjushri looked at the astonished Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha and said, Amitabha, Xuanji Meritorious Buddha, if you want to preach the Sanzang Buddhist scriptures in the Longevity Town and save all living beings, it's fine if you don't go to the Thunder Sound Temple to listen to the Revered One's teachings. If the Revered One knows about it, not only will he not punish you, he will even reward you. But you've already brought the Sanzang Mahayana Buddhist scriptures to the hidden immortal continent. You still want to go to the West to seek scriptures? Where is the West? The scriptures you seek, what scriptures are they? In this world, other than the Thunder Sound Temple, what other scriptures are worth seeking? The Xuanji meritorious Buddha, Chuanzang, put his palms together and replied calmly, Namo Amitabha, Dipankara Archaic Buddha, the Revered One, and Namo Wisdom Manjushri, please know that when I was still a child, I entered Nirvana for many years. When I entered Nirvana, I saw the Western Paradise. I clearly remember that when I entered Nirvana, I walked towards the West for hundreds of years. That's the true origin of my Buddhism, where my Buddhism's true intent lies. Oh no, this is bad. After hearing Chuanzang's words, Xiao Hua recalled what Wang Bianfei said when he came out from the space, that little monk wants to head towards the Western Paradise. He has been trekking for hundreds of years. Xiao Hua unwittingly came to a realization as he thought to himself, Wang Bianfei has already mentioned this matter previously. Although Jiang Liu in the space has entered Nirvana, he must have seen the immortal herbs and other things in the space and thought that this was the Pure Land. And the place where I imprisoned him just so happened to be the east side of the Shenhua continent. He must be heading towards where those immortal herbs are. But how can I explain it to him? Why don't I wait for him to start seeking scriptures, then I'll use the Kunlun mirror to explain it to him. Namo Wisdom Manjushri was speechless. He was a bodhisattva, which was lower than Chuanzang's Xuanji meritorious Buddha. Thus, he couldn't criticize Chuanzang in front of everyone. Namo Dipankara Archaic Buddha's face was enraged. He looked at Chuanzang, then at Zhen Kong, and scolded, You have wasted the Revered One's care. Chuanzang was extremely confused. He looked at Zhen Kong, not understanding what the Dipankara Archaic Buddha was saying. Amitabha tilde at this moment, Zhen Kong stepped forward and respectfully kneeled on the ground, and kowtowed, Buddha, I have a great ambition to find the true Buddha scriptures and spread my Buddha's light throughout the world. I've also decided that I'm willing to follow the Buddha of Xuanji Math Virtue to the west and continue to seek scriptures. Let's go together, let's go together. Zhenjie saw this and jumped out as well. Its big ears flapped as it shouted, the Thunder Temple is really stingy. They only gave me the Buddha fruit of a heaven-vigilant arhat. They really let me down. I want to follow my master to the west and get myself a Buddha Lord identity. He didn't expect Yuan Tongtian to be so benevolent. Not only did Yuan Tongtian keep his orders in mind, but he also wanted to follow Jiang Liu and protect her. Seeing Buddha, Immortal Emperor Gaochen smiled and looked at Zhen Han and Dragon Horse Zhen Feng. Unfortunately, Dragon Horse Zhen Han and Dragon Horse Zhen Han were confused. They looked at each other and didn't step forward. Clearly, they didn't know about this. Evil creature, the Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord scolded, which he rarely did. Buddhist lights flashed all around him. There is only one Thunder Sound monastery in this world, and only one Mahavairokkana World Lord. Where are the true Buddhist scriptures? Where are the true Buddha Lord's Buddhist lights? The Great Snow Mountain's small exquisite temple. Immortal Emperor Gaochen laughed. Namo Maitreya Buddha is the future Buddha Lord. He naturally has the true Buddha scriptures and the Buddha's Buddha light. The Xuanji Maitreya Buddha, Chuanzang, raised his head and looked towards the west. It was still pitch black, and there were only specks of starlight hanging in the sky, guiding the people in the night. Chuanzang said, Amitabha. Benefactor, you're wrong. Disciple isn't going to the Great Snow Mountain or the Blessed Lands. Disciple is going to the west, cross the West Sea, and head towards the abyss of the West Sea. There is my Buddha light. Boom. Chuanzang's words were like a clap of thunder, stunning Xiao Hua. He looked at Chuanzang in disbelief and thought, West, the abyss of the West Sea. Isn't it just the Maitreya Sea? Isn't that where I came from? What is the Maitreya Sea? Isn't it just the Dawn Rain continent? What is there in the Dawn Rain continent? Isn't it just the ruins of Buddhism? Could it be that Liu knows about the ruins of Buddhism in the Dawn Rain continent? Impossible. Liu was only a few years old when he entered Serenity. How could he know about the ruins of Buddhism? At that time, let alone senior sister, even I didn't know about the ruins of Buddhism, right? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua thought of the day when Buddha body obtained the Buddha fruit of Namometria. Liu was the reincarnation of the future Buddha Lord. When he came here, he actually abandoned the position of Buddha Lord. The future Buddha Lord, one of the 3 great Buddha Lords of Buddhism, has a very high status. If there was no special reason, how could he give it up? That ball of golden light. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua understood. It's that ball of golden light. It must be the words that the reincarnated Buddha Metria left for the reincarnated Jiang Liu. That day, Liu entered Serenity and headed west. It looked like he was heading towards the center of Shenhua continent, but in fact, he was heading west. At that time, although he didn't obtain the golden light, he already had a long-cherished wish in his heart, which was to head west. Oh my, Jiang Liu, my nephew. I'm afraid his background is not small. Bah, of course his background is not small. He is one of the 3 great Buddha Lords of Buddhism. But Xiao Hua was still confused. Is there anything more noble than the future Buddha Lord of Buddhism in this world? He actually made Jing Liu give up the position of the future Buddha Lord. Metria Buddha. Xiao Hua suddenly thought of something. This guy must know something. Otherwise, how could he fall out with the Mahavarokana Buddha Lord as soon as he entered Lei-Yin Temple? There must be something fishy about this. Forget it, this is a matter of Buddhism. Why should I worry about it? If Liu wants to go, then go. There is only sea water in the West Sea. The so-called space passage is smaller than finding a needle in a haystack. If he didn't know where it is, even with the Mahavarokana Buddha Lord's divine sense, he wouldn't be able to find it. Liu is just some Buddha of Xuanji merit. What ability does he have to return to Xiaoyu continent? Hehe, besides, if he could find the way back, wouldn't I be able to return as well? While Xiao Hua was pondering, the Dipankara archaic Buddha Lord's shocked expression gradually faded away. He looked at the great aspiration Buddha lotuses that filled the sky and gradually disappeared into the void. He put his palms together and chanted, Amitabha Buddha. Evil fate, Buddha of Xuanji merit, victorious devil-slaying Buddha. This matter is of great importance. I must report it to the Mahavarokana Buddha Lord, Amitabha Buddha. The victorious devil-slaying Buddha Zhenkong said, this matter has nothing to do with my Buddha. It's fine if you don't report it. Ha ha. Xiao Hua couldn't help but laugh at Zhenkong's straightforward rejection. He raised his hand and pointed, Zhenkong, come here. The victorious devil-slaying Buddha hesitated for a moment. He walked in front of Xiao Hua and smiled, Daoist Xiao, this junior is here. Xiao Hua smiled, you have already attained Buddhism. You don't have to call yourself a junior anymore. This junior will always remember Daoist's guidance. The victorious devil-slaying Buddha said respectfully, Daoist will always be this junior's benefactor. En. Xiao Hua smiled faintly, very satisfied with the victorious devil-slaying Buddha's respect. He raised his hand and took out the wishful scepter, saying, of course, this Xiao has already made it clear on the Great Snow Mountain. After you finish praying in bliss, this wishful scepter is yours. Today, this Xiao came to the Longevity Town not only to congratulate Chuanzang, but also to give this wishful scepter to you. The victorious devil-slaying Buddha was overjoyed. He raised both hands and respectfully received the wishful scepter. The moment the wishful scepter entered his hand, it actually sank a few centimeters. The victorious devil-slaying Buddha quickly stabilized it and said, this junior thanks Daoist for his gift. All right. Xiao Hua smiled and helped the victorious devil-slaying Buddha up. He looked around and didn't hide anything, saying encouragingly, this old man was thinking of waiting until you finished praying in bliss, then choosing a disciple to take you into the fortune gate. But since you're willing to enter Buddhism, and the Vairocana Buddha revered has taken a liking to you, this old man won't compete with him. From now on, your fate with me has come to an end. You must cultivate well, and don't repeat the same mistake. Yes, this junior understands. The victorious devil-slaying Buddha's face was filled with emotions as he nodded. Go! Xiao Hua smiled and said, escort Chuanzang to continue praying in the west. This old man has high hopes for you. Many thanks for senior's support. The victorious devil-slaying Buddha respectfully walked to the side of the Buddha of Xuanji Virtuous Virtue. It was only at this moment that the Buddha of Xuanji Virtuous Virtue seemed to have awakened from a dream. He looked at Xiao Hua gratefully and opened his mouth, wanting to say something but hesitated. Some words didn't need to be said, and some love was already engraved in his heart. Ayo, this old man almost forgot. Seeing the victorious devil-slaying Buddha leave, Xiao Hua suddenly slapped his forehead as if he had thought of something. He smiled and said, now that you're a Buddha, you're no longer as arrogant and violent as before. This old man's methods should be withdrawn. After saying that, Xiao Hua didn't bother to make any hand seals. He raised his hand and a bolt of lightning flashed, landing directly on the victorious devil-slaying Buddha's head. The victorious devil-slaying Buddha was shocked and wanted to dodge, but even though he was the victorious devil-slaying Buddha, his strength was far inferior to Xiao Hua's. How could he dodge? The lightning flashed and hit him. However, after the lightning flashed, the victorious devil-slaying Buddha didn't change much. The sun-moon corona that Xiao Hua had expected didn't appear on his head either. Oh! Xiao Hua was stunned. He grabbed at the air again, and a shadow fell on top of the victorious devil-slaying Buddha's head. PS. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it a tip, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-37. Amitabha, this is bad. How could the Dipankara archaic Buddha not know what had happened? How could he not know what the Mahavairokkana archaic Buddha had done wrong? He couldn't help but exclaim. Zhenfeng was definitely not without a backer. Moreover, this backer was terrifyingly powerful. Only, after the Dipankara archaic Buddha's exclamation, he shut his mouth. At this point, who could hide the truth of this matter in the three great continents? He couldn't, the Mahavairokkana archaic Buddha couldn't, and the Maitreya Buddha couldn't as well. Seeing that the sun-moon corona didn't appear, Xiao Hua didn't suspect anything and said with a smile, Mahavairokkana is really merciful, to actually remove your Tao crown without my consent. Could it be that he was afraid that I would snatch his disciple? The victorious exorcism Buddha felt guilty for no reason. Although he was good at hearing and could discern the truth, he could see everything clearly. Moreover, if he stood in one place, he could know what was happening 1,000 miles away. He could also hear what mortals were saying. Thus, he was good at hearing and could discern the truth, he could see everything clearly. And yet, as he stood in front of Xiao Hua, his divine ability fell upon nothing but emptiness. Even Xiao Hua's figure was illusory. He couldn't tell what Xiao Hua was thinking, what he was seeing, and what he was hearing. Furthermore, there was no way he could know what the Tao crown Xiao Hua was talking about was, or what should have been on top of his head. Thus, he quickly smiled and said, yes, that day at the Thunder Sound Temple, the archaic Buddha saw the invisible Tao crown on my head and felt that it wasn't appropriate for me to be a Buddhist disciple. At that time, he, unfortunately, before victorious Purge Demon Buddha could finish speaking, Xiao Hua frowned. His eyes flashed like lightning as he stared at victorious Purge Demon Buddha. At first, victorious Purge Demon Buddha didn't dare to dodge, but after a moment, his eyes began to flicker. Damn it! You're not Yuan Tongtian. Xiao Hua roared angrily. He raised his hand and grabbed, instantly imprisoning the victorious Demon Slay Buddha. He shouted, who are you? How dare you pretend to be Yuan Tongtian? Seeing this, not only was Chunzong shocked, but even Zhen Jie, Zhen Han, and Zhen Feng were shocked. They didn't expect that the real and fake Zhen Kong would still be unable to tell the difference after they had arrived at the Thunder Sound Temple. What's more, he let this fake Zhen Kong Nirvana Extreme Bliss seek sutras for nearly 50 years. Zhen Han and Zhen Feng glanced at the silent Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord and seemed to have thought of something. With a thoughtful look on their faces, they quickly shut their mouths as well. Whether it was the Fortune Gate or the Thunder Tune Temple, Neither of them were forces they could afford to offend. Damn it. You're the fake Shen Kong. You actually deceived me for so long, Zhenjie shouted. Boom. A thunderous hand streaked across the sky and slapped Zhenjie's face. Zhenjie, who was at the 8th grade of elemental energy, didn't even have the strength to resist. His entire body tumbled in midair. Xiao Hua's cold voice sounded, devouring heaven. This old man asked you to take good care of Chunzong and Zhen Kong. How did you do it? Enlightened one, spare my life. Enlightened one, spare my life. Zhenjie had seen how Xiao Hua killed the heaven-swallowing beast. Now that he saw Xiao Hua get angry, the surrounding space was filled with coldness, and layers of lightning were like guillotines surging in the sky above Jiang Tiaro Temple. He had long been scared out of his wits, and shouted in midair, "This matter has nothing to do with me. I wasn't there at that time." In order to save his life, Zhenjie briefly recounted the matter of him chasing after Ni Quan. He shouted, "As for the specifics, I'm also not clear." Xiao Hua gritted his teeth and took a deep breath, temporarily suppressing the anger in his chest. He looked at the victorious demon vanquishing Buddha, whose eyes were filled with terror, and ignored him. He looked at Chun Zhan and said, "Chunzong, tell me, what is going on?" Chun Zhan hesitated for a moment. After recovering from his shock, he turned around to take a look. The entire process was as clear as a mirror. This Zhen Kong was definitely not Yuan Tongtian, and the real Yuan Tongtian had already disappeared from the shores of the Eastern Sea. However, he was very conflicted in his heart. Previously, Zhen Kong did his best to protect him, but he was also arrogant and unruly. He often killed Dao Gate cultivators and demonic beast race cultivators, which really made Chun Zhan worried to death. There were also many clashes between them. After arriving at the hidden immortal continent, although this fake Zhen Kong was not as devoted to protecting him as the real Zhen Kong, he was still very respectful and courteous toward him. This was especially true as this fake Zhen Kong was also proficient in Buddhist techniques and would often debate with him. Chunzong naturally had his suspicions when he saw Zhen Kong's improvement and change. However, Chunzong was clear that it was impossible for the Thunder Temple's Mahavairokkana revered Buddha to not be able to differentiate between the real and fake Zhen Kong. This Zhen Kong must be the real Zhen Kong. The reason why he changed was just like what Zhen Kong said after returning from the Thunder Temple. After seeing the expression of the real and fake Zhen Kong, he was enlightened by the Mahavairokkana revered Buddha. He knew that his previous inadequacies were being changed by his effort. What Chunzong saw was different from the previous Zhen Kong. It was his change. Now that Chunzong thought about it again, his heart was filled with bitterness. He mocked himself for being childish and avoiding it. Although people could change, their nature couldn't be changed. It was the same for the demonic beast race. Yuan Tongtian was arrogant and killed people without hesitation. Although he wanted to change, how could he change in the blink of an eye? It wasn't that he didn't suspect if this Zhen Kong was Yuan Tongtian. Instead, he was avoiding it because he liked the fake Zhen Kong and didn't like the real Zhen Kong. He had let down Yuan Tongtian, who sincerely protected him. If I treat Yuan Tongtian like this, then what about the Mahavairokkana revered Buddha? Chunzong thought more than Xiao Hua. Seeing Chunzong's hesitation, the Dipankara archaic Buddha spoke, Amitabha. Benefactor Xiao, shut up. Xiao Hua roared and stopped the Dipankara archaic Buddha from speaking. He yelled, "Old Dipankara, it's not that I don't want to give your Thunder Temple a chance. It's just that it's not the time for you to speak. If you dare to say anything else, I'll kill you and Manjushri first before leading the Fortune Gate's disciples to attack the Thunder Temple. I'm not interested in the Guanyin Bodhisattva's Buddha fruit, but I'm interested in the Buddha Lord's Buddha seat." Hearing this, the Gauchan Immortal Emperor's eyes lit up. The Grand Mist Ancestor, who had been quietly observing, also revealed a smile. How could the Dipankara archaic Buddha fall for it? He smiled and ignored Xiao Hua's words. He didn't want to argue with Xiao Hua anymore. Unfortunately, the Dipankara archaic Buddha was too weak. He had already underestimated Xiao Hua's strength. If Xiao Hua had truly given up and killed him in the Longevity Town regardless of the price he had to pay, it wouldn't be a joke. Sigh. Seeing Xiao Hua so angry, Chuanzang also became alert in his heart. He sighed and explained the cause of the matter in full detail. Tai Bai Jinxing. Xiao Hua turned his head without hesitation and looked at Tai Bai Jinxing. Speak. Yes, Lightning Master Xiao. Tai Bai Jinxing didn't feel any pressure facing the Lightning Master of the Immortal Palace. Although he had already seen through it, he didn't point it out. Instead, he kicked this troublesome matter to the Thunder Temple. As such, he casually told everything he knew. You. Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and looked at the Nanwu Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva, who had gone through life and death with him. His gaze was filled with hostility. Nanwu Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva didn't feel any pressure. That day, he had already seen through who was the real fire ape and who was the real six-eared macaque. However, he didn't make any decision. Still, he glanced at the Dipankara archaic Buddha. Amitabha. Now that things have come to this, tell me the truth. The Dipankara archaic Buddha pressed his palms together. Yes, World Lord. Nanwu Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva told him everything he saw by the East Sea's shore, how he had already seen through the reason but couldn't differentiate between the real and the fake. He then brought the two Zhen Kongs to the Thunder Temple, and how Yuan Tongtian was killed by the fake Zhen Kong. Hearing that Yuan Tongtian had been killed, Xiao Hua's eyes turned red. Yuan Tongtian was loyal to him and followed his orders to protect Jiang Liuer. Who would have thought that he would be killed by the fake Zhen Kong in the Thunder Temple? Such an ending made Xiao Hua furious. Ha ha ha. Xiao Hua looked at the fake Zhen Kong that he had imprisoned and laughed. Poor Yuan Tongtian. He was killed by you in front of Mahavairokkana. Mahavairokkana is really blind. I really want to know what kind of background you have to have Mahavairokkana protect you. After saying that, Xiao Hua slapped his forehead and used another ability of the delusion-breaking Dharma Eye, Heavenly Eye. However, when Xiao Hua saw it clearly, his eyes widened and he yelled, Damn it, damn it, damn it. It's actually the six-eared macaque. I should have strangled you to death that day. I shouldn't have listened to Master Ma Qin and let you live. Now, I've angered Yuan Tongtian and lost my life because of it. After saying that, Xiao Hua raised his hand, and a bolt of lightning flashed on his finger. It pierced through the void and was about to pierce the six-eared macaque's heart. Amitabha. Xiao Tanyu, please show mercy. Please listen to this old monk's explanation. It won't be too late to attack after that. The Dipankara archaic Buddha didn't dare to be careless. He raised his hand, and Buddha lights appeared out of nowhere. A 9th-rank Buddha lotus blocked the lightning. Buddha lights overflowed from the Buddha lotus, and countless Buddha kingdoms appeared from within. Damn you, bald donkey. Xiao Hua sneered and said angrily, You dare to show off in front of this old man with such means? Do you think I can't kill you? Xiao Hua didn't take any action and allowed the Buddhist lotus to block the Buddhist light. Boom! The seemingly dim lightning struck the Buddhist lotus and a huge rumbling sound was produced. The Buddhist kingdom was instantly annihilated and the Buddhist lotus also withered to an extreme degree. Amidst the explosion, the lightning flew towards the six-eared macaque's heart like Xiao Hua's killing intent. The Dipankara archaic Buddha's expression changed greatly. He realized that Xiao Hua's threat wasn't just empty words. However, if he wanted to attack now, it was too late. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-38. Seeing that the six-eared macaque was about to be killed, Chunzong suddenly knelt on the ground and said, Uncle, please restrain your thunderous rage and listen to what the Dipankara archaic Buddha has to say. Boy, I only just learned that Zhen Kong had died. I've let Zhen Kong down. If I've done something wrong, I'll have to bear the responsibility. The word uncle was like a sudden clap of thunder, striking everyone in the field. Even the Dipankara archaic Buddha was dumbfounded once again. This was the biggest secret of the sutra praying of nirvana. It was even bigger than the secret of Zhen Kong being sent by Xiao Hua. This was a secret that even the Mahavairokkana archaic Buddha didn't know about. What's the background of this Xiao Hua? The primordial mist ancestor squinted his eyes and thought to himself, Not only is he the Dragon Master of the Dragon Island, the Thunder Master of the Immortal Palace, the Buddhist sect's Namo Great Merciful Mahavarokana Bodhisattva, even the Shwanji Mahavarokana Buddha is his nephew. Who in the 3 continents can rival him? If Xiao Hua isn't eliminated, how can my sky-bearing palace rise? Golden radiances flickered in the golden-winged great rock's eyes. While he was shocked, he was glad that he had the intention to befriend Xiao Hua. As for the Go Chen Immortal Emperor, his face was blocked by the golden radiances. Although he was feeling complicated, no one knew what he was thinking. Seeing Chun Zong kneeling and calling him uncle, Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and kept the lightning radiances. He said calmly, Liu you're the Shwanji Mahavarokana Buddha and my nephew. I can't ignore your words. However, Yuan Tongtian was ordered by me to protect you. He was loyal to you. Now that he died in such a pitiful manner, I will investigate his death to the end. If you're in the wrong, don't blame me for being ruthless. Yes, boy understands. Although I don't know what exactly happened, I feel that the secret behind this seems to be beyond your imagination, and even beyond the imagination of the venerables of the world. Chuanzang hurriedly expressed his thoughts. Speak. Xiao Hua looked at the Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord. Sigh. The Dipankara archaic Buddha let out a sigh. After sending a voice transmission, Immortal Emperor Go Chen smiled. Dipankara archaic Buddha, since you have something to say, why don't you make it public? If you were to deceive my Immortal Palace's Master Lei, I'm afraid that even if he was involved, he wouldn't know. Mother **K, shut up. Xiao Hua felt vexed for no reason and scolded, Gouch an old man, and you, this old man still hasn't settled the score with you. If you don't tell me where the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal is, I won't let you leave Longevity Town. Boom. Immortal Emperor Go Chen's body shone with golden light. It seemed like he was about to get angry. The golden-winged Great Peng beside him laughed and said, Not bad, not bad. I've heard that Xiao Longsha is infatuated with the new princess. For the sake of his love, he killed 900,000 disciples of the 4 great clans. Today, this holy sage will lend Xiao Longsha a helping hand. Damn it. Immortal Emperor Go Chen cursed. The radiance only circled around him and didn't attack. If the great sage hall joined forces with the Fortune Gate, the Immortal Palace might not be their match. Speak. In order to seek justice for Yuan Tongtian, Xiao Hua didn't hesitate to glare at the 3 exalted experts of the 3 continents and said to the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord. Amitabha, it's like this. Naturally, the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord wouldn't let Immortal Emperor Go Chen, the primordial mist ancestor, and the others know about the Thunder Sound Temple's secret. Hearing this, Xiao Hua's heart was filled with complex emotions. He didn't know what to say. The 6-eared macaque was Ananda's reincarnation. However, just like the Prime Clarity Palace Lord and Grand Clarity Palace Lord's clones, Ananda didn't return to the 3 continents. Instead, he returned to the Dawn Rain continent. Ananda shouldn't have returned to the Blessed Land world. However, he met Xiao Hua, and Xiao Hua brought him and the fire ape Yuan Tongtian to the 3 continent. Ananda's reincarnation, the 6-eared macaque, didn't have such powerful abilities. It was impossible for him to have such powerful illusions. However, after experiencing the separation of yin and yang in his own space, his abilities were greatly enhanced. His future potential was limitless. The Mahavarokana archaic Buddha world lord made the right choice when facing the real Zhenkong Yuan Tongtian and the fake Zhenkong 6-eared macaque. After all, the Mahavarokana archaic Buddha world lord made the right choice when facing Zhenkong Yuan Tongtian and the fake Zhenkong 6-eared macaque. This was because the Mahavarokana archaic Buddha world lord had mistaken Zhenkong 6-eared macaque for Ananda. In other words, in the eyes of the Mahavarokana archaic Buddha world lord, Jiang Liu and Yuan Tongtian were both fake. Only this 6-eared macaque was the real one. The fruit of defeating the demon Buddha wasn't given to Yuan Tongtian. It was given to the 6-eared macaque and Ananda. However, because of his appearance, he had snatched Nanwu Metria Buddha world lord's Buddha position. Jiang Liu had snatched Ananda's Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra. The 6-eared macaque didn't dare to snatch it from Jiang Liu. He could only snatch Yuan Tongtian's. All of this happened when he appeared at the East Sea. When he appeared to scheme, he was discovered by the Mahavairokkana archaic Buddha world lord. The Thunder Temple wasn't wrong. The Mahavairokkana archaic Buddha world lord wasn't wrong either. At that time, it was the best time to point the six-eared macaque as Zhen Kong. This opportunity was also fought for by the six-eared macaque with all his might. The one who was wrong could only be the six-eared macaque and Ananda. He didn't expect the fire ape Yuan Tongtian, who had always ignored everyone, to be so loyal to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua also valued Yuan Tongtian so much, because with his ability, he couldn't see what was happening in the Shenhua continent. Therefore, he made the wrong choice, which was to kill the fire ape. Because the six-eared macaque couldn't see through Xiao Hua's actions, he didn't know that the fire ape had a sun-moon crown on his head. As the Buddha of Xuanjimetria, Chunzong naturally couldn't hear the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord's voice transmission. He only saw the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord clasping his hands together and lowering his head in silence. Xiao Hua looked at the sky with a complicated expression. Only then did he speak. "Uncle, boy didn't notice and let the six-eared macaque kill Yuan Tongtian. This boy has let Yuan Tongtian down. Please punish me. Stand up, Liu'er." Xiao Hua helped Chunzong up and shook his head. "You're just a mortal. You don't know about this. Even Taibai Jinxing and Manjushri Bodhisattva don't know about this. How can you be responsible for this? Don't worry and go to the West to seek scriptures. With the protection of the chastity precepts and my reputation, if anyone dares to do anything to you, my fortune gate will kill them all." "No, uncle. You don't understand." Although Chunzong stood up, he still had tears on his face as he said, "Boy did suspect it before, but then Chunzong told Xiao Hua about his regrets." Xiao Hua frowned. Zhen Kong was loyal to Chunzong, but he didn't have the heart to follow Buddhism. Compared to Ananda's reincarnation of the six-eared macaque, he was much weaker. Xiao Hua pondered for a while and nodded. "If that's the case, I won't pursue the Thunder Sound Temple's responsibility. However, since the six-eared macaque killed Yuan Tongtian, I won't let it go. Even if the Mahavairokkana world lord comes, I'll still take his life." "Ha ha ha." Speaking until here, Xiao Hua suddenly laughed. He looked at the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord with a meaningful gaze and said, "Do you know why the Mahavairokkana world lord didn't come to the longevity town?" "Amitabha." The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord shook his head and said, "Xiao Tan, you're overthinking. The world lord isn't such a scheming person. He had already paid the price when Yuan Tongtian was killed. I don't care what the price is." Xiao Hua only wanted to take revenge for Yuan Tongtian. He waved his hand and said, "I only want to kill the six-eared macaque to take revenge for Yuan Tongtian." "Amitabha." The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord felt helpless. He knew that Xiao Hua's means had already surpassed his abilities. Even if he couldn't stop Xiao Hua, he still wouldn't be his opponent. He looked at the six-eared macaque and smiled bitterly. "Ananda, if you knew this would happen, why did you follow him? Have you realized it?" "Timpage." Xiao Hua snorted. The lightning in the sky dispersed, and the six-eared macaque's body was released. The six-eared macaque landed on the ground. The panic on his face had already disappeared. He looked at the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord, then looked at the Thunder Sound Temple. However, there wasn't any regret on his face. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed 9 times in the direction of the Thunder Sound Temple. He said, "Master, I've always thought that I'm smart, and that I'm the wisest person in Buddhism. However, when I was about to die, I realized that I knew nothing. You've done so much for me, and I felt that everything was natural. When I'm reborn, I'll be your disciple again. When that time comes, I hope that you won't restrict me too much. Let me have my freedom." After that, the six-eared macaque kowtowed to Chunzong again and said, "Master, although you've taken away my opportunity, I've gained a lot from following you. Although it hasn't been a long time, I've finally realized that my heart towards Buddhism is like the light of a firefly compared to Master. Master, you're my role model. Everything that I've done, I can only blame myself. The Tao of Karma is nothing more than that. Today, I'll take my leave. I wish you success in your quest for the Western scriptures, and complete your dream. Sigh. Chun Zong wanted to say something, but all the words he wanted to say turned into a sigh. The six-eared macaque stood up and looked at Xiao Hua. He wasn't afraid at all. He said calmly, "Enlightened one, if you want to kill me, no one in this world would dare to stop you. Don't worry, I won't resist. However, you don't have the right to kill me. On the hidden immortal continent, there's only one person who has the right to decide my life or death. I only want you to follow me to a place. If that person says that I deserve to die, I won't say anything else. You don't have to do anything. I'll kill myself to appease the world. P.S. For those who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidian. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 4639. Looking at the reincarnated six-eared macaque, Xiao Hua sneered. The Dipankara archaic Buddha had already stated that Ananda had chosen to enter the beast Tao and reincarnate into the demon race to avoid the Mahavairocana exalted Buddha. His intention to betray the Tao was clear. Then, Xiao Hua said, "Oh? Hidden immortal continent. I thought it was the Thunder Sound Temple's Mahavairocana exalted Buddha, so it's the hidden immortal continent. I'm curious. Even I don't have the right to kill you, yet that person has the right to do so. Who is that person? Rest assured, enlightened master. That person has no cultivation and is just a mortal. Enlightened master will know when you see him," the six-eared macaque said calmly. He knew the situation he was in and didn't dare to say anything to provoke Xiao Hua. He only looked at Xiao Hua and stated, "What if I don't go?" Xiao Hua asked. "Enlightened master, you can choose not to go. No one in this world would dare to force you to go," the six-eared macaque replied. "However, since enlightened master is talking about karma, let me settle it." Looking at the six-eared macaque's calmness and calmness in his eyes, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. "All right." Xiao Hua nodded and looked at the Thunderbolt Immortal, Wen Chu, and the heavenly being. He threw the Kunlun mirror to the heavenly being and instructed, "Fellow Taoists, please guard this place. No one is allowed to leave. I'll be back soon." "Yes." The Thunderbolt Immortal's voice was like thunder. He looked at the Go Chen Immortal Emperor. The heavenly being took the Kunlun mirror and looked at everyone with bright eyes. "Dragon Master Xiao, please go. This sage will also stay here and won't leave." The golden-winged great roc looked at Feng Wu and quickly expressed his stance. "Chemph." The Go Chen Immortal Emperor sneered. He flipped his right hand and took out the clear heavenly mirror. He said, "The hidden immortal continent is my territory. Who can stop me from going anywhere I want?" "Old man Gauchen." The Grand Mist Ancestor immediately shouted. "Don't be arrogant. You dare to disobey Daoist Xiao?" Initially, the Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha was about to leave with the myriad Buddhas. Upon hearing Xiao Hua's words, he couldn't help but frown. However, after hearing the Go Chen Immortal Emperor and the Primordial Mist Ancestor's words, his frown loosened. He said, "Your Majesty, the Sutra Praying to Extreme Bliss is a grand event held by my Immortal Palace and the Thunder Monastery. Although it's completed today, this old monk still has some insights to share with Your Majesty. If Your Majesty doesn't mind, can you please descend from the clouds and discuss with this old monk?" "Forget it." The Go Chen Immortal Emperor pondered for a moment and nodded. "Dipankara archaic Buddha, I'll stay behind to listen to you. This time, both our sects have exhausted so much effort, only to end up benefiting others. How sad." "Your Majesty's words are too serious." The Dipankara archaic Buddha smiled and said, "It doesn't matter if it's a wedding dress or not. As long as the Buddha's light falls upon the concealed immortal, and the Confucian's words become blissful, our goal has been achieved." Seeing that everything was settled, Xiao Hua waved his hand and took the six-eared macaque away. Then, he asked, "Where are we going?" "There." The six-eared macaque pointed at the shore of the East Sea. Without saying anything, Xiao Hua's figure flickered, and he transformed into a bolt of lightning, shooting into the distance. Seeing that Xiao Hua had left, The primordial chaos ancestor, Daoist rider crane, and child of the dark night looked at each other. Then, they flew toward the thunderbolt hermit and cupped their hands, saying, "I'm the primordial chaos ancestor. Greetings, Daoist thunderbolt." The Go-Chen immortal emperor and the Dipankara archaic Buddha descended and stopped above the river tide temple. The Manjushri Bodhisattva turned around and looked at the Buddhas and heavenly kings before sitting down cross-legged. The golden-winged great rock and phoenix Wu smiled and landed in front of Wen Chu. Then, he cupped his hands and said, "Long time no see." Immortal Wen Chu, Zhenjie, on the other hand, had a troubled look on his face. In front of Chuanzang, he complained, "Master, have you ever considered letting Zhenfeng participate in this Western Paradise scripture retrieval? I'm used to riding him, and I really don't want to let him go. Moreover, we're heading to the West Sea. If you keep Zhenfeng, wouldn't it be more convenient to ride the 8 divisions heavenly dragon's body in the West Sea?" Before Chuanzang could say anything, Zhenfeng's figure flickered, and he flew to the side of the golden-winged great rock. He had already made up his mind. He was the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace's 10th prince. Today, he had already become an 8 divisions heavenly dragon. Next time, he would never be fooled by the Western Paradise scripture retrieval, even if he was given a Buddhist seat. After all, Zhenjie was too heavy, and the way he put it, was too smelly. Everyone was waiting for Xiao Hua's return in the Longevity Town. However, no one expected that in just a few moments, a thunderous rumble could be heard. Rumble. In the southwest, in the direction of the East Sea's shore, a thunderous rumble could be heard. Thousands of flames appeared in the sky within 1,000 miles, burning away the darkness before dawn. Oh, what's going on? Seeing that it was the direction Xiao Hua and the 6-eared macaque were heading, everyone was shocked. How could they not know what had happened? Perfected cultivator Qingyuan, quickly go and take a look. Immortal Emperor Gaochen flew up first and shouted, "What's going on?" Page. Pretentious. Celestial being was not used to Immortal Emperor Gaochen's behavior. He snorted and said, "It's only 1,000 miles. You'll know if you use the clear eyes technique." However, before Celestial being could finish, he shouted, "What? What formation is blocking the southwest of the Longevity Town?" These words were transmitted by Xiao Hua's mind. Wen Chu's expression also changed, and he hurriedly covered it up. "That's right, fellow Immortal Xiao sent a message. He's blocked by a mysterious formation in the southwest of the Longevity Town. He can't leave from there. Celestial being, use the Kunlun mirror to subdue Chunzong and then go to assist Xiao Xian. Thunderbolt Immortal, you stay here and don't fall for the trick of luring the tiger away from the mountain. Rock Sage and Phoenix Sage, please go to the north of Longevity Town to investigate." After saying that, Wen Chu said to Immortal Emperor Gaochen, "Your Majesty, stay here as well. I'll go with Sun Jian to the east." "All right, thank you, Wen Chu Palace Master." When Immortal Emperor Gaochen saw Wen Chu's arrangement, he knew that Xiao Hua was guarding against him. He didn't say anything and just followed Wen Chu's instructions. Then, Wen Chu smiled at the Dipankara archaic Buddha and said, "If it's possible, World Lord, you can stay here as well. How about inviting the Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva to the west of the Longevity Town to investigate?" Amitabha. That's how it should be. The Dipankara archaic Buddha didn't say anything else. He ordered the Manjushri Bodhisattva to bring some arhats and other Buddhas over. "As for the 3 of you, you can stay here as well." Wen Chu looked at the primordial chaos ancestor and the others and said with a fake smile, "Thank you, fellow Taoist." The primordial chaos ancestor knew how important this matter was. He didn't dare to say anything that might cause a misunderstanding. He cupped his hands and descended, sitting cross-legged with Daoist rider crane and the Dark Night child on the Jiangchao ridge. After the assignment was done, Wen Chu brought Sun Jian and the other immortal generals and flew towards the east. Xiao Hua took the 6-eared macaque with him and flew southwest. He did not know who the 6-eared macaque was talking about, but he knew that since the karmic hands were moving, he should go with the 6-eared macaque and find out who this mysterious person was. Therefore, Xiao Hua didn't say anything to the 6-eared macaque. He only focused on flying. 1,000 miles passed in a blink of an eye. The surrounding sky started to darken, and the starry sky started to hide. Xiao Hua knew that this was the darkness before dawn. It was also at this moment that Xiao Hua suddenly felt some indescribable fluctuations in space. These fluctuations were like cotton wool that wrapped around Xiao Hua's body in an instant. After several breaths of time, Xiao Hua felt as if the space around him was filled with invisible obstacles. His flying speed suddenly decreased, as if he had fallen into a quagmire. Oh! What's going on? Xiao Hua was taken aback, but he didn't stop moving. He released his divine sense, and with a flicker, he teleported into the distance. Unfortunately, in the blink of an eye, Xiao Hua's figure appeared again. He couldn't stay in the void for long, so he couldn't use his teleportation technique. Moreover, the strange thing was that when he released his divine sense, there were no obstacles within 10,000 miles. However, when he released his divine sense, it was almost the same. It was as if, when his divine sense fell into the Sumeru restriction, it seemed that his divine sense swept far away, but in reality, it was very close. The primordial chaos ancestors' ambush. This thought flashed through Xiao Hua's mind, but after a moment, he laughed involuntarily. Even if the primordial chaos ancestor had obtained an opportunity in the Star Moon Palace, and his cultivation had reached the late Great Ascension stage, if he wanted to face the experts of the 3 continents, he still couldn't do it. He couldn't do such an unwise thing. Break. Xiao Hua was too lazy to think about it. He grabbed the 6-eared macaque, imprisoned it, and threw it into the Shenhua continent. Then, he waved his hands, and a thunderous hand appeared, grabbing at the invisible restriction. Boom! The sound of thunder was loud, and the void within a few miles was torn apart. The feeling of being entangled by the fluctuations was still there. Damn it! Xiao Hua was truly enraged. He rubbed his hands again, and thousands of thick crystal lights fell into the void. Boom boom boom! Ka-cha-cha! In the sky several li away, thunderstorms surged and surged like a tide, covering the sky and covering the earth as they fell. However, the thunderbolts were like pearls cast into darkness, and it didn't cause any ripples. Everything around him was like an illusion. Open! Xiao Hua hurriedly retreated. When the fluctuations that entangled him disappeared, Xiao Hua slapped his forehead and opened his delirium breaker Dharma eye. When he saw everything in front of him, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. In the delirium breaker Dharma eye, layers of fist-sized flames filled the entire space like clouds. These flames were light red, and the delirium breaker Dharma eye could see them clearly. Xiao Hua understood that what the delirium breaker Dharma eye saw was condensed from the essence of vitality. These layers of flames must be an extremely powerful restriction formation. Who is it? Xiao Hua was shocked. Who dares to set up such a formation when the supremes of the various sects are gathered at the Longevity Town? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4640. Fellow Taoists. Xiao Hua immediately sent a sound transmission in his heart. The southwest direction of Longevity Town is blocked by a forbidden array. I can't go out. Quickly, fellow Daoist Celestial, come and help fellow Taoists. You all go and take a look. After sending the sound transmission, Xiao Hua opened his illusion breaker eye again and activated his flying technique to fly into the flaming clouds. Sure enough, when Xiao Hua's figure fell into the flaming clouds, those clouds were like cotton wool. They could be scattered but they would not shatter. Xiao Hua's flying figure was entangled by the scattered clouds, and when more clouds were entangled around Xiao Hua's body, Xiao Hua once again felt that it was difficult to move. Chimpage. Xiao Hua sneered and closed his illusion breaker eye. What he saw with his naked eye was still a pitch-black night sky. Not long after, the Celestial flew over with the Kunlun mirror and shouted, "Fellow Daoist, don't worry, I'll help you." With that, the Celestial was about to take out the white bones. "Don't be anxious." Xiao Hua raised his hand to stop the Celestial and said, "I's lightning hand can't even tear apart this inexplicable forbidden array. I'm afraid that your Celestial's white bones won't be enough." "Hehe, that's true." The Celestial being smiled foolishly and nodded. That's all I have. You know all about it. Just tell me what you want me to do. How's your refining of the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper? Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes, raised his hand to signal the Celestial to give him the Kunlun mirror, and then asked. The Celestial gave the Kunlun mirror to Xiao Hua and said, "The 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper is the celestial race's heaven artifact. Although I have the method to repair and refine it, it has only been a few decades and can't be fully completed. However, even if the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper is completely repaired, I'm afraid it's useless to break this restriction." Xiao Hua took the Kunlun mirror and first stored Chun Zong into the Shenhua continent. This time, he was relieved and nodded. "Fellow Daoist is right. The 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper is used for fighting. If it's used for breaking restrictions, it's useless." Seeing that Xiao Hua was neither anxious nor slow, the Celestial understood and said with a smile, "So fellow Daoist already has a method to break the restriction. You called me over just because you're worried." "Indeed." Xiao Hua nodded and said, "I have 2 ways to break the seal, but I don't know which one is useful." "Fellow Daoist, hurry up and break the seal," the Celestial said with a smile. "I'm rather curious. Who would dare to besiege Longevity Town at this time? There are supreme beings from the Immortal Palace, Thunder Temple, Great Holy Hall, and Fortune Gate here. Who else could it be?" Xiao Hua sneered. At this moment, even if he used his heel to think, he knew who was behind this. Who on this hidden immortal continent has such strength? No way. Xiao Hua thought in his heart, and did not hide it from Heaven Man immediately exclaimed, "It's actually the 4 great families. Aren't they setting up a formation at Dawn and Dusk Cliff to fight against my Fortune Gate? How could they have set up such a large restrictive formation in the Longevity Town? Right now, we can't be sure if it's one of the 4 great families." At this time, Xiao Hua didn't seem to be particularly anxious to break the array. Instead, he asked with a smile, "However, I have 70% confidence. Fellow Celestial, do you still remember the 2 doubts I had in the Fortune Dao Palace?" Heaven Man slapped his own forehead and laughed. "I understand now. Fellow Daoist, you suspected that the 4 great families didn't use their full strength that day. So, they were just deliberately mystifying things at Dawn and Dusk Cliff to attract our attention and also the Immortal Palace's attention. They made that old man Gauchen think that the 4 great families were here to steal when Chu's 5 Chi unification art, but in reality, their target was the Longevity Town. Their goal was Immortal Emperor Gauchen." "Yes." Xiao Hua nodded. "If I'm not mistaken, the 4 great families have been setting up this Longevity Town for many years. It might even have started after the Sutra-seeking extreme bliss began. They knew that when the Sutra-seeking extreme bliss ended, Immortal Emperor Gauchen would definitely leave the Immortal Palace and come to the Longevity Town. They set up a formation here to take Immortal Emperor Gauchen's life or take his position. In order to not arouse Immortal Emperor Go Chen's suspicion, they had placed an army of 900,000 at Chao Mu Ya. Now, Immortal Emperor Go Chen had fallen for their trap and easily left the palace to come to hidden Immortal Continent. "We are just fish in the moat caught in a fire at the city gate. Damn it, the 4 great families are too cunning." Heaven Man was speechless. At this time, when Chu's voice sounded in their minds. "That is indeed the case. There's also a strange wave coming from the east of Longevity Town, filling up the space. I can see it with my divine sense and clear eyes technique, but I can't pass through. As for what the wave looks like, I can't see it clearly." When Chu then smiled and said, "Fellow Immortal Xiao, do you still want to break the restriction now?" "What's wrong with me? Break what restriction now?" Xiao Hua smiled. "This is the time to threaten Gauchen old man. If we don't seize this opportunity, how will we know where the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal is? As for that 6-eared macaque, it doesn't matter when we kill him. Plus, I didn't promise him to find that mysterious person. If I am not happy, I will just kill him." Xiao Hua's body flashed, and he brought the Heaven Man to where Wen Chu was. At this time, the eastern sky was filled with immortal generals. These immortal generals used their own divine abilities, wanting to rush out. Unfortunately, They could only fly out a few miles before they were blocked by the space. It was difficult for them to take another step. Seeing Xiao Hua come over, Sun Jian hurried forward to greet him. Xiao Hua nodded and opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye. He saw that in the horizon, there were golden lotuses shining with dazzling golden light. They were like layers of clouds that covered the entire heaven and earth. All of the immortal generals were trapped in these golden lotus clouds. Hee hee. Xiao Hua laughed coldly and turned to fly to the north. Sun Jian hurriedly called out, Master Xiao Lei, did you find anything? Oh. Xiao Hua asked curiously. Don't you have the Voidbreaker eyes? Can't you see it? Junior's Voidbreaker eyes are most useful for breaking the seal of the void. Junior tried to open it just now, but the void is blocked. Junior's Voidbreaker eyes can't open it. Sun Jian answered honestly. When Xiao Hua heard that, he thought of something. His expression changed slightly, and he immediately took out the Kunlun mirror. As expected, the Kunlun mirror's light beam fell into the void, and the void was empty. There was no spatial passage that he expected to be born. Damn it! Xiao Hua cursed and hurriedly urged his soul consciousness. He wanted to see the Black Wind Ridge's teleportation formation, which was not too far from here. Unfortunately, he still couldn't discover the Black Wind Ridge even though he had released his soul awareness more than 10,000 miles away. He couldn't discover the teleportation formation either. Xiao Hua knew that Daoist witches going south, going north was probably going to lose its effect in this forbidden formation. Then, he thought for a moment and asked, General Sun, who do you think this mysterious formation is? Sun Jian answered without hesitation. If it's not the 4 great families, then it's the 100 schools of thought. Even if it's the 100 schools of thought, it's still instigated by the 4 great families. Ian, this old man thinks so too. Xiao Hua nodded. You should hurry and report to old man Gauchen. Tell him to wash his neck clean and wait. Sun Jian's expression changed, but he still respectfully said, Junior understands. Junior will go report to him right now. Seeing Sun Jian and Tai Bai Jinxing leave in a hurry, Xiao Hua didn't delay and went to the north of Longevity Town. In the northern sky, Saint Peng and Saint Phoenix, the 2 great saints of the demon race, saw Xiao Hua appear. Saint Peng came to greet him. Xiao Hua helped Sage Peng up and asked, Sage Peng, did you find anything strange? Of course. The Golden Rock sneered. This is the work of those old bald donkeys from the Thunder Temple. No wonder Mahavairokkana didn't come. He set up this formation outside. Ah! Thunder Temple? Mahavairokkana? Xiao Hua was a little confused and asked, why does Sage Peng say that? This void is filled with the light of relics. No matter how I use my flying technique, I can't break through this light. The Golden Rock pointed to the distant sky and said. Phoenix Wu looked at Xiao Hua and said, Sage Peng and this sage have already tried, but we didn't succeed. I think. Fellow Daoist's lightning escape technique also can't succeed. Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. He asked, is Phoenix Sage sure? After all, Xiao Hua's lightning escape technique had once been close to breaking through the limit of time law in Star Moon Palace. How could it not break through this restriction? Previously, he and the Celestial had patted their chests with confidence. One was the Kunlun mirror, and the other was naturally this lightning escape technique. Basically, I'm sure. Phoenix Wu nodded. If fellow Daoist doesn't believe me, you can try. Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't try now. He only opened his delusion breaker eyes. Sure enough, as the Golden Rock said, his eyes were filled with the light of relics. There were no other colors. Hiss. Xiao Hua pinched his chin and thought to himself, could this really be the work of the Thunder Sound Temple? Why do they want to use this restriction formation? Other than the Immortal Palace and the Great Sage Hall, there's only my Fortune Gate and the so-called Sky-bearing Palace. Could it be, they want to destroy my Taoism? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua's face turned cold. He instantly teleported to the western sky. At this time, the east wind broke through the dawn. The warm sunlight pierced through the darkness, and the western sky was still a little white. When Xiao Hua saw Nanwu Wisdom Manjushri leading a group of guardian heavenly kings, Arhats, and Vajras to break through the restriction formation, Xiao Hua's suspicion disappeared. If the Buddhism sect had laid down a restriction formation, the Dipankara archaic Buddha and Nanwu wisdom Manjushri would definitely be the first to leave the formation. Why would they stay here as hostages for no reason? Of course, this didn't eliminate the possibility that the Buddhism sect was trying to hide something. Greetings, senior apprentice brother. Nanwu wisdom Manjushri hurriedly greeted Xiao Hua. You're too polite, Bodhisattva. Xiao Hua hurriedly helped Manjushri up and said, it's better to call me Sandalwood. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-41. However, Nanwu wisdom Manjushri shook his head and said, since senior brother has attained the fruit of Nanwu merciful Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, you are a Bodhisattva of Lei-Yin Temple. Perhaps you don't want to rebuild your Buddha body in Lei-Yin Temple, but you are still my senior brother. Sigh. Fine. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said helplessly, do whatever you want. I won't go to Lei-Yin Temple. Anything will do. Go to Lei-Yin Temple? Manjushri Bodhisattva was stunned for a moment, then he smiled and said, senior brother, you misunderstood me. That is to listen respectfully in front of Mahavarokana World Venerable. It is a blessing that hundreds of millions of bodhisattvas can't get. Xiao Hua did not know whether to laugh or cry. He finally understood why he suddenly attained the fruit of Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. When he collected the water from Liao River in Longevity Town, he almost attained the fruit. The virtues he obtained were not only the power of faith from the people in Longevity Town, but also the virtues of spreading good seeds across Xiaoyu continent. Later on, Buddha Subhuti appeared out of nowhere. Buddha Subhuti was Xiao Hua's Buddhist avatar. Therefore, all the merits fell on Buddha Subhuti. When Xiao Hua entered the ruins by mistake and obtained Nanwu Metria's relics and virtues, he even sacrificed himself for the people in the ruins. His virtues had long surpassed the fruit of Bodhisattva. When Xiao Hua and Buddha body were teleported back to Great Snow Mountain, Jing Liuer cut off her long-cherished wish and attained the fruit of Buddha body. At this time, Buddha body was still Xiao Hua, but Nanwu Metria Buddha was different from Xiao Hua. When Wen Chu became a human being, Demon Lord became a demon, and Reverend Yun became a dragon, Nanwu Metria Buddha had also changed. Xiao Hua did not know whether he had become a human being or not, but he knew that Nanwu Metria Buddha had returned the virtues that belonged to Xiao Hua's original body. Therefore, when he was in Longevity Town, Xiao Hua accidentally and inevitably attained the fruit of Nanwu merciful Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva in front of Liao River, which had not attained the fruit of Buddha over 400 years ago. Of course, the fruit of Buddha was a touch of light on the golden body of Bodhisattva, but on Xiao Hua's body, it was just some light on the Godhead. Light. Let's talk about this later. Xiao Hua looked at the serious Manjushri Bodhisattva and replied, previously, because of Zhengkong's matter, Xiao. Brother Xiao's tone was a bit unkind. I hope junior brother can understand. Hearing Xiao Hua calling himself brother and calling himself junior brother, Manjushri was overjoyed. He hurriedly put his palms together and said, Amitabha, this is the fault of Lei-Yin Temple. When I saw Ananda's incarnation appear, I was also shocked and didn't know what to do. As for the truth and falsehood that this little monk spoke of back then, it was actually the truth. It's just that Zhengkong didn't quite understand. After that, Ananda was ruthless. The revered one was also implicated in this matter. It's good that senior martial brother didn't go to the Lei-Yin Temple. Speaking of Mahavirokana revered Buddha, Xiao Hua sneered, Namo Metria Buddha betrayed Lei-Yin Temple, is it related to this matter? This. Manjushri hesitated and said in a low voice, this matter is related to the three Buddhas. I dare not say anything. Now, senior brother is also a bodhisattva. Sometimes, you have to think for Lei-Yin Temple. What if I think for small exquisite temple? Xiao Hua said with a faint smile. Sigh. Manjushri suddenly thought of something. After a while, he said sincerely, Namo Metria Buddha, senior martial brother, Lei-Yin Temple and small exquisite temple are one. Senior martial brother can help either one. Also, Xiao Hua's heart moved. He asked again, "What's the matter with Ananda?" Dipankara archaic Buddha didn't say too much. "Senior martial brother, don't make things difficult for this little monk," Manjushri said with a bitter face. "This is the matter of the Buddhas. How would this little monk know? The most important thing now is to see how to break the restriction. This restriction is really mysterious. If my heaven's foot connection can't work, the other disciples can't either. We have to see senior martial brother's method." Seeing Manjushri like this, Xiao Hua didn't force him. He stood still in the air and activated his illusion-breaking Dharma Eye. However, in his Dharma Eye, the western horizon was covered by a layer of white clouds. The clouds covered the entire sky, and the end couldn't be seen. What kind of formation is this? Xiao Hua thought and looked at the sky. After all, the places where different clouds touched were usually the weak points of the formation. If he wanted to break the restriction, he could only start from there. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua was destined to be disappointed. This was because the area where the white clouds came into contact with the relic's scattered light was also a layer of clouds. The layers of clouds were still overlapping each other without any gaps, and there was no flaw to be seen. This is troublesome. Xiao Hua stood in the air with a worried expression on his face. He still wanted to use his own divine ability to threaten immortal Emperor Go Chen, but seeing that this grand formation was so tight that not even the slightest gap could be found, and even he was trapped here, how could he threaten immortal Emperor Go Chen? "Senior martial brother." Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't speak, Manjushri asked tentatively, "This restriction. Junior martial brother, you should go and ask the Dipankara archaic Buddha." Xiao Hua waved his hand angrily. "Senior martial brother's talent is shallow. I have just touched the threshold of the Thunder Sound Temple, and I have never seen such a mysterious restriction before." Manjushri was helpless and could only order the Buddhas to guard the west side while he flew back to the River Tide Temple. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and shook the Kunlun mirror, mobilizing 40,000 Fortune Gate disciples. 20,000 guarded the north side of the Longevity Town, and 20,000 guarded the south side of the Longevity Town to prevent any changes to the mysterious formation. Then, Xiao Hua turned to look at Wen Chu and the Heavenly Man, and asked in a low voice, "I've seen it again. What do you think?" "It's difficult." Wen Chu shook his head, and the Heavenly Man shrugged, expressing his helplessness. However, just as Xiao Hua was about to speak, Wen Chu's eyes suddenly lit up, and he said with a smile, "This old man remembers two of your abilities. It should be useful." Since Wen Chu thought of it, Xiao Hua naturally thought of it too. He smiled bitterly and said, "One is to forcefully activate the lightning escape art. Although Feng Wu has already tried it, he didn't go to the Star Moon Palace, so he doesn't know the profoundness of the lightning escape art. However, don't forget, when the lightning escape art is pushed to the extreme, the last bit of the clear feather pill's medicinal efficacy will be activated. I might ascend to the heavens." "Haha, so fellow Daoist wants to ascend? That's a good idea. Under the laws of heaven and earth, all restrictive arrays will lose their effectiveness. We can naturally leave." The Heavenly Man laughed. "Currently, I don't want to ascend to the heavens." Xiao Hua rubbed his nose and replied, "Moreover, why would I do these things that harm myself for no reason and let Old Man Gaochen and Old Man Hongmeng benefit for nothing? Then we can only rely on." As he spoke, Wen Chu looked at Xiao Hua's left hand. "That's even more unacceptable." Xiao Hua shook his head without hesitation. "Although the Daoist sect has a rift with the Confucian sect and the Buddhist sect, we are still humans. This is a righteous cause. Once the devil blade appears, or the demon venerable murder appears, we will become demons. The Confucian sect is the best at spreading rumors. All our previous efforts will turn into water, and we can only benefit Old Man Hongmeng." Wen Chu pondered for a moment and nodded. "If that's the case, we can only wait and see. This formation is really strange. Our divine abilities are not affected by the formation at all. Even our divine sense and eye-clearing techniques are not hindered. However, it only prevents us from leaving. This means..." Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked at the floating clouds in the sky. He said, "The person who set up the formation has absolute confidence in trapping us to death. And they haven't revealed their powerful methods yet. As Xiao Hua spoke, he was unwilling to give up. He rushed into the sky and entered the ground. He looked around again, but he still didn't find anything. Only then did he bring Wen Chu, the heavenly man, and the golden-winged Great Peng, Feng Wu, and the others back to the River Tide Temple. Originally, there were many monks in the River Tide Temple. In order to welcome Chuanzang's group and hold a grand ceremony to end the sutra-seeking of nirvana, these monks had gathered around the temple. After Xiao Hua and the primordial chaos ancestor came uninvited, these monks received the abbot's orders and gradually retreated. Now, seeing the strange situation around the Longevity Town, these monks came out from the River Tide Temple and went to various parts of the Longevity Town. They were either comforting the citizens or looking for flaws in the formation. The Dipankara archaic Buddha originally invited immortal Emperor Gaochen to the River Tide Temple for a chat. However, how could immortal Emperor Gaochen step foot into a Buddhist temple? He landed on top of the River Tide Temple, and golden radiances appeared out of nowhere, forming the shape of a golden throne. Immortal Emperor Gaochen sat on top of the cloud. Naturally, the Dipankara archaic Buddha sat on top of the 9 grades lotus throne, facing immortal Emperor Gaochen. Now that the situation had changed, the two of them flew up and sat back down when they saw their disciples flying out. They exchanged a glance, then turned to look at the Jiangchao Ridge. On the ridge, the sky-bearing palace's Grand Mist ancestor, Daoist rider Crane, and Nyezi were sitting cross-legged. The three of them seemed to be meditating and turned a blind eye to the two of them. The Go-Chen Immortal Emperor and the Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord glanced at the three before retracting their gazes. They knew very well that the so-called sky-bearing hall was nothing but a nobody. Only the primordial mist ancestor was worthy of their attention. The primordial chaos ancestor and the other two came here with great risk. The primordial chaos ancestor was betting that Xiao Hua didn't know about Prince Lan's matter and that Xiao Hua wouldn't lay his hands on Taoism's cultivators. That was why he only came out after Xiao Hua appeared. They wanted to take advantage of Xiao Hua's Fortune Gates confrontation with the Immortal Palace, Thunder Monastery, and Great Sage Hall to show off their prowess. This kind of trickery was different from Xiao Hua's method of advancing step by step. It was merely a method, and not strength. Therefore, the two of them were certain that the strange changes around the Longevity Town were not the Grand Mist ancestors' doing. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidian. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, bookmark it, tip it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-42. Not long after, Sun Jian and Tai Bai Jinxing returned. They didn't hide anything and told the Dipankara Archaic Buddha about the Longevity Town situation, as well as the myriad golden lotus blossoms that Xiao Hua saw with his delirium dharma eye. Hearing that Xiao Hua could see through the void, the Grand Mist ancestor's body trembled slightly, and he couldn't help opening his eyes. Daoist rider Crane and Nyezi also opened their eyes. The three of them exchanged a glance, and the complicated expression in their eyes became even more complicated. Manjushri Bodhisattva came back and told him about the situation in the west. Immortal Emperor Gaochen seemed to have thought of something and was surprised to hear that there were only white clouds in the west. The Thunderbolt Immortal wasn't with Hong Meng ancestor and the others. Instead, he was sitting cross-legged on the Liao River opposite the Jiangchao Ridge. His gaze was sharp as lightning as he looked at the people on the Jiangchao Ridge. After listening to Sun Jian and Manjushri's words, he subconsciously looked down at the Liao River below him. He waved his hand and a streak of lightning turned into a fish and swam down the river. Unfortunately, it was only a short moment before the lightning was obstructed in the distance and couldn't float away in the slightest. Looking at the river water again, although it was still flowing slowly, the torrential momentum was long gone. Whether it was the river water or the fish, when they reached the place where the lightning was obstructed, they all stopped and slowly flowed back. Damn it, natural elemental energy. Seeing how the water flow was acting, Reverend Thunderbolt immediately thought of the natural elemental energy. He hastily released his divine sense to check the surroundings. Thankfully, The natural elemental energy within a radius of 500 li was still abundant. It was not obstructed by the restrictive array. When Thunderbolt Sage was inspecting, Xiao Hua and the rest had already returned. He looked at Immortal Emperor Gauchen and the rest before sitting cross-legged in the sky to the south of the tidal river temple. Celestial Being and Wen Chu naturally sat beside him. The golden-winged rock and Feng Wu sat on the north side. The golden-winged great rock's gaze was like lightning. He looked at everyone and explained the situation of the Sarira lights in the north. Then, he stared at the Dipankara archaic Buddha and coldly said, "Old man Dipankara, what else do you have to say? Apart from your Buddhist sect's Buddhist artifacts, which other item has Sarira light? How could it be so powerful? You must have fallen into the trap of the Mahavarokana revered Buddha, right?" Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha pressed his palms together and said, "How can the likes of you understand the intentions of the world Lord? Although the world is big, it can't compare to even 1% of the Venerable One's mercy." Master Xiao Lei. Immortal Emperor Go Chen calmly asked, "Where is the southwest of Longevity Town?" Immortal Emperor Gauchen lowered his head again after hearing Xiao Hua's explanation of the southern flaming clouds and his failure. The Grand Mist Ancestor pondered for a moment, then said, "I have some doubts after hearing Dao Master Xiao's words, but I don't know if they are true or false. I hope Dao Master Xiao can correct me. Please speak, fellow Daoist Primordial Chaos." Hearing the Grand Mist Ancestor's rare humility, Xiao Hua was a little surprised. He looked at the Grand Mist Ancestor from head to toe and chuckled. The Grand Mist Ancestor coughed and said, "First, I feel that this is a premeditated ambush, and it has been planned for a long time." Nonsense. The Lightning Daoist did not give face to the Grand Mist Ancestor and said coldly, "Everyone knows this. Do I need you to tell me that?" "Hee, fellow Daoist Thunder, don't worry." The Grand Mist Ancestor smiled faintly and said, "What I mean is, since this is something that has been planned for a long time, then this ambush has a purpose. This purpose is definitely the few forces that will participate in the sutra seeking extreme bliss. My sky-bearing palace and fortune gate, coming to Longevity Town is definitely not something they would expect. Their target should be the Great Sage Hall, Immortal Palace, or Lightning Tune Temple." The Lightning Daoist snorted and said, "Is there even a need to say this?" The Grand Mist Ancestor ignored the Lightning Daoist and said, "How many forces on the 3 continents can contend against the Great Sage Hall, Immortal Palace, and Lightning Tune Temple? Dragon Island, Fortune Gate, Sky-bearing Palace." The Lightning Daoist was about to scold the Grand Mist Ancestor for being shameless, but Xiao Hua stopped him in his heart. The Grand Mist Ancestor continued, "Since Dao Master Xiao and I are here, the Fortune Gate and Sky-bearing Palace should be eliminated. Then, there is only the Dragon Island." "Damn it!" Zhen Feng shouted angrily from afar, "Grand Mist Ancestor, are you trying to slander us because our dragon race isn't here? I am the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace's 10th Prince R. Now, I am the 8th Division Heavenly Dragon. If you continue to spout nonsense, don't blame me for being impolite. If it's the Dragon Island, then who is the Dragon Island's target? How could the Grand Mist Ancestor care about Zhen Feng?" He continued to analyze, "Then it can only be the Great Sage Hall. Of course, if the other Great Sages of the Great Sage Hall are dissatisfied with the Great Sage Peng and Great Sage Hall, they will probably take action. However, I feel that if they want to deal with the Great Sage Hall, they should not target the Longevity Hall, but the road from the Great Sage Hall to the Longevity Town. There is no need for the Dragon Island to involve the Immortal Palace and Lightning Tune Temple. Then what does fellow Grand Mist Ancestor mean? After talking for so long, why can't I hear anything?" Xiao Hua asked. "I am only reminding you that there is a purpose to this ambush. Other than the 3 continent superpowers, what else is there? Are there other hidden forces?" The Grand Mist Ancestor hinted. Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat as he seemed to understand the Grand Mist Ancestor's meaning. The corner of his mouth curled up into a cold sneer as he asked in a low voice, "Grand Mist Ancestor, can you say it clearly?" "Xingyue." The Grand Mist Ancestor looked provocatively at Xiao Hua as he said each word clearly. "You deserve to die." Xiao Hua's heart was burning with anger. thinking about how Shuji had treated him well in the Star Moon Palace, then thinking about how Shuji had blocked him, not allowing him to make things difficult for the Grand Mist Ancestor, then thinking about what Shuji had not said, what he had done for the Grand Mist Ancestor in the past. Xiao Hua jumped up from the cloud and said loudly, since Daoist Grand Mist has said this, then this Xiao has no choice but to say it. Xingyue has belonged to my fortune gate ever since the Xingyue Palace appeared. Whoever dares to have any ideas about Xingyue, don't blame my fortune gate for being impolite. Ah! Everyone was stunned, and the Grand Mist Ancestor was even more shocked. He hurriedly said, Ayo, fellow Daoist Xiao, congratulations, congratulations, this seat has been rude. This seat was just discussing the matter as it is, but I didn't expect that the flood would rush to the Dragon King's temple, and we don't recognize each other anymore. It seems like this seat's deduction was wrong. At this point, the Grand Mist Ancestor asked curiously, that's right, fellow Daoist Xiao, this seat is a little presumptuous to ask, where is the original owner of Xingyue? Xiao Hua replied snappily, fellow Daoist need not worry about that. Their whereabouts have nothing to do with you. That's good, that's good. Although Xiao Hua did not answer directly, the Grand Mist Ancestor seemed to be relieved and smiled exceptionally brightly. Damn it, do you have anything else to say? The celestial being was also annoyed by the Grand Mist Ancestor's words and shouted loudly. Of course. The Grand Mist Ancestor's purpose was naturally to find out the whereabouts of Fairy Xingyue and Shuji. Secondly, it was the ownership of the star-plucking tower. In order to avoid suspicion, how could he not have other methods? He agreed and said, since Xingyue is not the owner, then, it should be the other hidden forces in the three continents. Among these forces, the most famous one is also the most likely. Hehe, there is no need for this seat to say more. Immortal Emperor Go Chen must know. Chimpage. Immortal Emperor Go Chen snorted coldly and did not say anything else. The Grand Mist Ancestor continued, other than some clues from the purpose, there are also some clues from the method used to set up the formation. This seat has not seen this formation before, but from the strange phenomenon that Daoist Xiao saw with my Dao Gate's divine ability, this formation should be divided into 4 different great formations according to the 4 directions of heaven and earth. Each great formation should have an array disk or array flag. In this world, to be able to set up 4 great formations of the same power at the same time, I'm afraid that only the 4 great clans of the hidden immortal continent can do so. Didn't the 4 great clans just get beaten to a pulp by the Fortune Gate at the Day and Day Cliff? The golden-winged Great Peng frowned and said, how could they have the strength to set up formations here? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and said, you may not know, Sage Peng, but the 4 great clans gathered 900,000 disciples to confront my Fortune Gate at the Day and Day Cliff. My Fortune Gate killed more than 300,000 of them and captured more than 500,000 of them. It is not good for me to kill these 500,000 disciples, but it is also not good for me to keep them alive. In the end, I simply let them go. Soft-hearted. The golden-winged Great Peng didn't seem to regard Xiao Hua as an outsider. He blamed Xiao Hua and said, if you had killed all of them back then, how could today's disaster have happened? Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha, who had been silent all this while, stood up and clasped his palms together. Namo Great Compassionate Great Guanyin Bodhisattva, previously, this seat had been brooding over your attainment of karma. From the looks of it now, you truly deserved it. This seat apologizes to you. Amitabha. Xiao Hua could only stand up and clasped his palms together in a familiar manner. Dipankara archaic Buddha, seat of the world, you are too serious. It doesn't matter if I have attained karma or not, as long as I am merciful in my heart. If I wasn't forced into a corner, I wouldn't even be willing to kill those 300,000 disciples. Xiao Hua's words were naturally directed at the Go Chen Immortal Emperor. He didn't know if the Dipankara archaic Buddha was aware of this. However, he still said, we Buddhists emphasize on being merciful. However, we Buddhists still have thunderous methods to subdue devils. For the sake of Buddhism's peace, we have no choice but to stain ourselves with blood. After the Dipankara archaic Buddha sat down, the golden-winged Great Peng suddenly realized something and shouted, oh, Dragon Master Xiao, This sage suddenly realized that you are not only the dragon master of the Dragon Island, but also the thunder master of the Immortal Palace. Now, you are even the Namo Great Compassionate Great Guanyin Bodhisattva. Oh, you are also good friends with my rock sage. The Star Moon Lord again. Oh my. You. Aren't you the number one person of the 3 continents? Don't forget, Thunder Master Xiao is also good friends with my Immortal Palace's Literature Palace Lord. The Go Chen Immortal Emperor said with a faint tone, from what I know, when the Namo Metria Buddha attained karma, he also witnessed it on the Great Snow Mountain. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidian. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-43. At this moment, the Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord also spoke. Since he's the Namo Great Merciful Vidyalaya Bodhisattva, he must have the world in his heart. I support such a person becoming the number one expert of the 3 continent. The Mahavirokana World Lord also supports him. My sky-bearing palace also supports him. The primordial chaos ancestor hurriedly yelled. Xiao Hua waved his hand. Everyone, you're wrong. Let's discuss how to break the restriction first. If it's really the setup of the 4 great families, this restriction is no small matter. I've studied the Tao of formations of Taoism in the past. The primordial chaos ancestor smiled. If you want to break the formation, you must first know what kind of formation it is, what are the formation plates and flags used to set it up, and where is the formation core. Only when you have a clear understanding of the formation can you truly break it. According to Daoist primordial chaos, what kind of formation is this? What are the formation plates used to set it up? And where is the core of the formation? Xiao Hua asked with a smile when they talked about the formation. The primordial chaos ancestor felt a little guilty and chuckled. This must be the defensive formation of the Confucian cultivators. That's not something I can know. Damn it. The heavenly being shouted, after listening for so long, you're still spouting nonsense. Sigh, does your disciple know what kind of nonsense you're spouting every day? Damn it. The primordial chaos ancestor was a little embarrassed. He glanced at the heavenly being and cursed inwardly. There was a moment of silence on the Jiang Chao temple. Suddenly, a whirling breeze descended from the sky. Everyone looked up and saw that in the blue sky, the sun was high up in the sky. There seemed to be a circle of light that was visible to the naked eye, slowly sliding down. Xiao Hua was shocked. He hurriedly used his divine sense to scan the area, but nothing happened. Not even a spatial ripple appeared, let alone any fluctuations. However, this halo of light was like a heavy boulder in everyone's heart. No one knew what this light thread was used for. This kind of mystery was more frightening than any other method. Your Majesty. The Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord retracted his gaze and looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen. These 4 defensive formations. Have you seen them before? I haven't seen them before. Immortal Emperor Go Chen calmly replied. Moreover, I feel that these 4 formations are not the defensive formations of Confucian cultivators. Xiao Hua sneered. If it's not a defensive array, could it be my Tao sect's array? Could it be the Buddhism formation of the Buddhism sect? The golden-winged great rock looked at the Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord and probed. The Grand Mist ancestor rubbed his chin thoughtfully. It could also be the demonic beast race's demonic array. Amitabha, there's no need to guess anymore. The Dipankara Archaic Buddha, the world exalt, said, I don't know what kind of formation this is. However, I seem to have some impression of the scattered Sarira lights mentioned by the Guanyin Bodhisattva. Oh, revered one of the world, please speak. Xiao Hua hastily asked. Unfortunately, the Dipankara Archaic Buddha did not answer him directly. Instead, he looked at the Immortal Emperor Go Chen and asked, Did you not notice anything, Your Majesty? Immortal Emperor Gao-Chen smiled. Of course I know what I see. I'm sure you know what you see as well, right? Amitabha. Seeing how the Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord refused to speak, he could only say, Since Your Majesty doesn't want to say, I'll just have to embarrass myself. According to my Thunder Monastery's records, before the Immortals and Buddhas joined forces to destroy the Tao, 5 flags appeared on the 3 great continents. They were known as the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flags. According to legend, these 5 elements flags were formed from the 5 petals of the chaotic green lotus. They are all supreme-grade early heaven treasures. The Eastern treasured flag is known as the green lotus flag. It can calm one's heart, repel all evils, and be invulnerable to all arts. The Eastern treasured flag emits the scattered Sarira lights. These scattered Sarira lights are similar to my Buddhism sect's scattered Sarira lights, yet there are some differences. I don't know what the differences are, because I've never seen this green lotus flag before. If the Guanyin Bodhisattva didn't mention the scattered Sarira lights, I wouldn't have remembered this story. SSS. Hearing the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord mention the 5 elements flags, Xiao Hua instantly thought of the mystic origin water control flag he had obtained in the profound water palace. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air as he thought, that day in the profound water palace, Xin Xin revealed the origin of the mystic origin water control flag. She said that it came from the immortal world and was used to suppress the devil saber murder in the profound water palace. The immortal world she mentioned must be the heavenly court. I've only seen the might of the mystic origin water control flag and don't fully understand it. However, I'm well aware of how powerful the devil saber murder is. That's a devilish saber that even the devil lords of the ruins feared. Yet, it was suppressed by the mystic origin water control flag. If this mystic origin water control flag is one of the 5 elements flags, then the other 4 5 elements flags that form these 4 formations aren't something I can deal with. Even if I summon my devilish saber, I won't be able to do anything. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua hurriedly asked, World Lord, the other 4 5 elements flags, what are their names? What's so powerful about them? Amitabha. The cultivation of Buddhism isn't about Buddhism formations, but about the heart. If it weren't for the Sarira lights on the green lotus flag, I wouldn't have known about it. Therefore, I don't know about the other 4 5 elements flags. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord didn't know if he really didn't know or if he was faking it. He only pushed this question to immortal Emperor Go-Chen. I'm afraid I can only ask your majesty about this. Chimpage. Xiao Hua snorted and looked at immortal Emperor Go-Chen. Even Xin Xin knew about the origin of the mystic origin water control flag. How could immortal Emperor Go-Chen not know about it? Unfortunately, immortal Emperor Go-Chen still shook his head. Why must I know if the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flags don't belong to my immortal palace? What? Your Majesty doesn't know about it if it doesn't belong to the immortal palace? Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and asked calmly. Oh, if that's the case, this sage finally remembered. The golden-winged great rock suddenly cried out. The Great Sage Hall has records of something called the Carnate Pentagonal Formation. This formation is neither a Dharma formation nor a demonic formation, much less an imperial formation or a Buddhist formation. The pentagonal formation is set up by 5 carnate flags. These 5 flags possess boundless power and are used to protect one's body. All evil will be repelled, and all magic will be impenetrable. Let this sage think, the central flag is called the Yellow Earth Apricot Flag? Yes, it's called the Yellow Earth Apricot Flag. When this Yellow Earth Apricot Flag is activated, nothing can break through it. All evils will be repelled, and no arts will be able to invade it. Yes, it seems to be called the 10,000 Golden Lotuses. It's very similar to what Longsha Xiao saw in the east of Longevity Town. What about the others? Xiao Hua asked. The golden-winged great rock shrugged and shook his head. This sage can't remember the others. This sage only took a casual glance. But then, the golden-winged great rock looked at immortal Emperor Go-Chen and said, Go-Chen, it is said that the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flag was obtained by a Confucian sage. Later on, it was controlled by the human race and eventually lost to the hidden immortal continent. Could it be that you don't know about it? Timpage. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen coldly snorted and said, My Confucian sage has many sages. I don't know who Sage Peng is talking about. Moreover, my immortal palace has never had any records about this. However, if you are talking about the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flag, this emperor doesn't know everything. I only know that the southern flag is called the Floating Flame Flag. This flag confuses yin and yang, reverses the 5 elements, repels all evils, and is impenetrable by all arts. When it is activated, the flames are like clouds and can conceal the 5 elements. The Western flag is called the White Cloud Boundary Flag. This flag has a dense and mysterious image that illuminates the heaven and earth, repels all evils, and is impenetrable by all arts. When it is activated, the clouds float and the heaven and earth change colors. As for the Northern flag, this emperor doesn't know. Damn it, you are still being secretive even at this time. Xiao Hua was very disdainful of Go Chen's character and secretly cursed. However, he wasn't sure if the mystic origin water control flag was the Northern flag, so he couldn't say anything. When Chu frowned and said, "If it is as you all said, then this immortal town is surrounded by the 5 elements grand formation. However, this 5 elements grand formation is missing the Northern flag, so it can't be considered complete. We should have a chance. Immortal friend Wen Chu is looking down on this 5 elements grand formation too much." The golden-winged Great Peng shook his head and said, "You should know that this 5 elements grand formation is called the innate 5 elements grand formation, not to mention the 5 innate 5 elements flags acting as the eye of the formation. No one in the 3 continents can break it. Just the innate 5 elements flag alone is not a match for immortal friend." At this time, when Chu glanced at Xiao Hua, Xiao Hua had already told him about the mystic origin water control flag. After hearing this, Wen Chu's expression unconsciously changed. After all, he was very clear about the power of the devil saber murder. If that's the case, then this formation without the Northern flag should be called the innate 4 elements grand formation. Immortal Emperor Gaochen said, "At this time, I don't need to say anything more. Everyone should know who is scheming against us, right?" "Gaochen," the golden-winged Great Peng shrieked, "is there still a need to say it? The innate 4 elements grand formation is spread out in all directions and sealed off the immortal town. Apart from the 4 great clans, who else could it be? However, the one they are scheming against is probably you, right?" Immortal Emperor Gaochen laughed and said, "Is there a difference? Could it be that Sage Peng is not inside the formation? This sage is naturally inside the formation. However, even if we are both inside the formation, we are different, right?" The golden-winged Great Peng replied without hesitation, "The 4 great clans are coveting the immortal palace's throne. This innate 5 elements grand formation is known as the number 1 defensive formation in the world. It is even more powerful than Daoist Xiao's capital star formation. The 4 great clans have trapped you here, so they must have already killed their way to the immortal palace. Damn it." Immortal Emperor Gaochen cursed inwardly when his thoughts were exposed by the golden-winged Great Peng. He then looked at Xiao Hua and said, "Master Xiao Hua, you should be more vigilant now. Previously, you fought against the 4 great clans at Chaomu Ya. This time, you are trapped in the immortal town. Who knows, the Nangong family might attack your soaring Dragon Mountain range first." Hearing Immortal Emperor Gaochen mention Chaomu Ya again, Xiao Hua's anger surged. He sneered coldly, "Old man Gaochen, Sage Peng is not afraid of the 4 great clans attacking the Great Holy Hall. Do you think this Xiao is afraid of the Nangong family surrounding my fortune gate? This Xiao will put my words here. If Nangong Tianji dares to go, this Xiao can guarantee that he won't be able to keep his head. As for your majesty, shouldn't you tell this Xiao where the New Heaven's Punishment prison crystal is being kept? Otherwise, this Xiao will make a move before the innate 4 elements grand formation. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, gift it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-44. Motherfucker, speak. At this time, the Celestial also shouted arrogantly, "Otherwise, I will pull you down from the throne." The rock chuckled and added, "Gaochen, I saw that you were scheming before, but you're still a lord of a region. You're still broad-minded. That's why I'll accept any invitations you have unless it's something special. But now, it seems that everything you've done doesn't match your status as the lord of Immortal Palace. Daoist Xiao is a human grand ascension stage, a dragon among men. He's so broad-minded that even I want to befriend him. Why don't you like him? The 9th princess was wrong earlier, but Daoist Xiao gave you enough face in the battle against Chao Muya. If you still don't give him face, then don't blame me for not giving you any face. Hihi, how can taking advantage of a burning house be a gentleman's style? Immortal Emperor Gaochen didn't care about the rock's threat and said flatly, Sacred Peng, do you think I'm afraid of these idiots? Moreover, I also believe that Master Xiao Lei's words were just words of anger. He will definitely consider the big picture and help the master of the School of Literature to break the 4 directions formation, because if something happens to me, then no one will know about it. Xiao Hua looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen's face that was covered by the light. He also couldn't see Immortal Emperor Go Chen's expression, but Xiao Hua knew that under the light, it was definitely a complacent expression. Immortal Emperor Go Chen was the only person who knew the whereabouts of the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal. Unless he decided to break off relations with the Immortal Palace and search every inch of the hidden Immortal Continent, he really couldn't casually make a move. Xiao Hua took a deep breath and said coldly, Your Majesty controls the fate of all Confucian cultivators in the world. How can you not have a way to destroy the schemes of the 4 clans? Oh, and where's your golden throne? All Confucian cultivators in the world will bow before the throne. Your Majesty, you should act quickly. If I could bring the throne down from Immortal Palace, would Dongfang Qiong Hao and the others still dare to set up this formation in Immortal Town? Immortal Emperor Gaochen sneered. They only dare to use their brains when I leave Immortal Palace. His Majesty doesn't have a golden throne, but he still has the Emperor's sword. Xiao Hua's gaze fell on the Emperor's sword in front of Immortal Emperor Go Chen and said, If the Emperor's sword doesn't come out, who would dare to use their techniques? The meaning of Xiao Hua's words was very clear. Even if others wanted to break the seal now, they had to stop and wait for Immortal Emperor Go Chen's son of Heaven's sword to attack before they dared to try. Chimpage. Immortal Emperor Go Chen scowled. He knew that the 4 clans were targeting him, so how could he not use his strongest move? However, his plan to use Xiao Hua had failed. Instead, he had been forced here by Xiao Hua. It seemed that he had no choice but to take action. This made him feel very unhappy. Ph, a lazy donkey has a lot of shit and pee on it. Xiao Hua also coldly snorted and secretly criticized in his heart, At this time, you still want others to help you. You've really gone crazy from scheming all day long. If I were Dongfang Qiong Hao, I'm afraid I would also flip this guy over. Immortal Emperor Go Chen's body flew up and turned into 1,000 feet tall. He used his golden pupils and scanned the sky. Then, he raised the Emperor's sword. Buzz. With a clear hum, the space within 1,000 miles of Immortal Town began to tremble. Then, pillars of righteous energy appeared in the void. Unfortunately, these pillars of righteous energy only appeared for a moment before disappearing. The void inside the formation was blocked, so the Emperor's sword could only channel a small amount of righteous energy. Boom! Seeing that the righteous energy was no longer there, Immortal Emperor Go Chen's body swayed. The sun and moon above his emperor's armor shined brightly. The dragon that represented the providence of Confucian cultivators stepped on the 5-colored clouds around Immortal Emperor Go Chen and roared as it rushed into the emperor's sword. Whoosh! A light shadow and righteous energy gushed out from the emperor's sword. Amidst the cries of dragons and phoenixes, mountains and rivers, cities and countries, men plowing and women weaving, the myriad phenomena of the mortal world, and even the mountains and seas of books were all reflected in this warm sword light. This sword light seemed to be surging with a myriad of sword intents. It was an invincible royal aura that controlled the world. It fell towards the intersection of the golden lotus clouds and the Sarira's light. Boom! Under the emperor's sword, amidst the explosions, the clear eyes art, the 10,000 golden lotuses, and the Sarira's light that were invisible to the naked eye and divine sense were revealed. Outside of Xiao Hua's expectations, no matter if it was the golden lotuses or the Sarira, under the emperor's sword intent and sword light, there were no special changes. The boundless images fell into the clouds and the Sarira's light, like a clay ox entering the sea, and disappeared without a trace. The emperor's sword's body slashed into the gap between the clouds and the Sarira's light, but it also seemed to have fallen into a quagmire. It gradually slowed down, and in the end, it was actually suspended in the air. All kinds of strange images slightly trembled and then went back into the emperor's sword. Hiss. Sun Jian, on the side, took a deep breath and said, even the emperor's sword couldn't do anything. Who in this world can break this innate four-cardinal formation? Previously, there was still a grand chi flowing. Now, the four-cardinal formation seems to have been activated, and the grand chi pillar within the void has also been isolated. Xiao Hua said calmly, if I'm not mistaken, the heaven and earth essence chi of our Taoism will also be isolated. Our powers will be greatly reduced. Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha chanted and flew out. The bitter expression on his face became heavier, and he said, let me try, World Lord, your disciples are here to help. Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva didn't dare to delay and quickly flew out as well. He stood behind the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord, and the other Buddhist protectors and arhats also flew out and stood behind the Manjushri Bodhisattva. Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord chanted again. His voice was filled with helplessness, desolation, fading away, and even death. The radiance behind the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord's head shone brightly. Within the radiance, the power of faith flowed like a river. However, just like when the Emperor's sword was activated, the power of faith only flowed for a short while before it dried up. It can't be. Sun Jian was dumbfounded. As if he had seen a ghost, he yelled, the earlier heaven four-cardinal formation can even stop the power of faith. Looking at Sun Jian's shocked expression, he no longer resembled the knowledgeable true Lord Qingyuan. While Sun Jian was still in shock, the radiance behind the Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva and the other Buddha's heads shone brightly. The radiance was infused with the power of faith, transforming into Buddhist lights that rushed into the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord's radiance. Instantly, within 1,000 miles, Sanskrit chants resounded. Heavenly flowers rained down, and a heavenly maiden and a heavenly dragon appeared. However, just like before, the heavenly maiden and heavenly dragon's silhouettes appeared and disappeared immediately after. The heavenly flowers fell to the sky, but soon withered. The Sanskrit chants didn't stop, but they didn't have the same momentum as those on the stage. Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord chanted a Buddhist mantra, and a radiant illusory figure emerged from the radiance behind his head, landing within the slabs of light far away. Wherever the radiant illusory figure passed by, darkness would appear. Wisps of radiance would wither into heavenly flowers, and small chiliocosms would be annihilated one after another. The power of death and withering. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes. He had already noticed something amiss from this Buddhist light. Oh, there's even the faint flow of time. I understand now. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord not only represents the past, but also represents death. The Maitreya Buddha World Lord not only represents the future, but also represents rebirth. Only when I've comprehended the Tao of life and death, and when Chu has cultivated the Qi of life, can Buddha body truly attain fruition. As for the Mahavirokana World Lord, not only does he represent the present, but he also represents the boundary between life and death. Shouldn't the Mahavirokana World Lord be in control of life and death? As for the pitiful Buddha body, he's only a future Buddha Lord. I'm afraid he'll never become a Buddha. While Xiao Hua was pondering, the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord's radiant illusory figure had already landed on the slabs of light. Under the radiant illusory figure, thousands of slabs of light flashed, and the radiant illusory figure also disappeared instantly. The space remained the same, and the scenery remained the same. It was even more traceless than a spring dream. While everyone was still in shock, Xiao Hua came to a realization. After all, his thunderous palm contained the Tao of life and death. If even the Tao of life and death couldn't do anything, how could the pure power of death and withering be effective? World Lord. Seeing the radiant illusory figure vanish without causing any ripples, Namo Wisdom Manjushri and the others' expressions changed. Just as they were about to speak, the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord chanted, Namo Amitabha. Then, he slowly returned to the sky above the river tide temple, sat down cross-legged, and remained silent. All the Buddhas were dejected. Other than Namo Wisdom Manjushri, who was still standing in midair, the others all sat down cross-legged and silently chanted Buddhist scriptures. Sigh, this is the only bad thing about Buddhism. Seeing this, Xiao Hua sighed inwardly. He looked at the sun that was about to reach his head, as if he wanted to see something. Currently, there wasn't much wind blowing in the blue sky. Previously, there were still some clouds, but they were all shattered by Immortal Emperor Go Chen's sword. The scattered clouds floated in the air, as if they were cotton. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, Xiao Hua's expression changed drastically. He flew into midair and scanned the area with his divine sense. Then, he opened his illusion-breaking eye and shouted, "Everyone, the area within 1,000 miles of the Longevity Town has been completely sealed. Not only is the noble qi and the worldly essence unable to flow, even the air that mortals breathe has been sealed. We don't need to breathe to survive. From now on, we don't need to breathe anymore." After speaking, Xiao Hua didn't wait for anyone's response. His figure flickered, and he landed at the edge of the Longevity Town. Then, he carefully scanned the area with his divine sense. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, or tip it. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-45. 200 years later, the Longevity Town was no longer the same as when Xiao Hua had left. Not only was the town a few times larger, but the surrounding population had also increased by more than 10 times. Moreover, due to the sutra seeking extreme bliss, the Longevity Town only had the tidal river temple and other businesses related to Buddhism. The population that was more than 10 times larger were all gathered outside the Longevity Town. When Xiao Hua had left, the desolate roads and mountain ranges were now bustling with activity. Many villages and markets had appeared. In fact, if it weren't for the restrictions of Buddhism and Confucianism, the Longevity Town would have become a county long ago. The Xiantian Four Cardinal Grand Formation sealed off the Longevity Town within 1,000 miles. Naturally, it also trapped these mortals within the formation. Without air, Xiao Hua and the other cultivators could survive. However, these mortals couldn't. Xiao Hua had to either break the Four Cardinal Grand Formation or take these mortals into the Shunhua continent. However, Xiao Hua was a little hesitant to take these mortals in front of the Dipankara archaic Buddha and Immortal Emperor Go Chen. He was afraid that these two exalted experts would see through his secret. Especially Immortal Emperor Go Chen. That guy had the clear heavenly mirror. Fortunately, the Xiantian Four Cardinal Grand Formation had just been activated. There was still plenty of air within the formation. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept through the area. The mortals around the Longevity Town were still living blissfully and didn't realize that death was approaching. Ignorance. How nice. Xiao Hua sighed and was about to move again. He already had a plan. In the end, he had to take these mortals into the Kunlun mirror even if he had to risk exposing his secret. Right at this moment, radiant colors flickered high up in the sky. Strands of multicolored lights were formed like raindrops. Then, these multicolored lights transformed into golden lotus clouds, Sarira lights, flaming clouds, and layers of clouds around the Longevity Town. The clouds revealed by the four cardinal flags surged and transformed into Dongfang Qianghao, Shimen Jianzhong, Nangong Tianji, and Beiming Chu Qing. These four didn't have secondary bodies and weren't as large as normal secondary bodies. They were only a few dozen feet in size. As the multicolored lights passed by, all colors were restrained. They looked no different from ordinary mortals. Even the expressions on their faces were clear. Traitor. When Immortal Emperor Go Chen saw the four clan masters appear, he immediately scolded them. Why did you all set up the Carnate Four Cardinal Formation to seal the Longevity Town and trap me here? Your Majesty. Dongfang Qianghao and the others didn't glare at him. Instead, they bowed respectfully and said, since the ancient immortals and Buddhas joined forces to destroy the Tao, the military school has made outstanding contributions in battle. Since then, they have taken control of the Immortal Palace, and we Confucian cultivators have all submitted. However, since His Majesty took over the hidden immortal continent, although he barely made some achievements, it was easy for him to monopolize power. Especially in the last 1,000 years, His Majesty was headstrong and self-opinionated, listened to slander, and favored treacherous rebels. He was muddle-headed and tyrannical, which really hurt the hearts of Confucian cultivators and philosophers. Ever since the militarists took over the immortal palace, the 4 great aristocratic families have been living in seclusion. We don't care about the worldly affairs of the hidden immortal continent and only support the government of the immortal palace. Today, the patriarchs of the 100 schools have written a blood letter to the people, begging us to come out and remove the emperor from his position. We will return the righteousness of Confucian cultivators and restore the stability of Confucian cultivators. We, the 4 great clans, place the foundation of Confucian cultivators as our priority and place the livelihood of the people as our priority. We write the 4 great clans' declaration to exterminate Gaochen to the world so that it can be heard properly. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Immortal Emperor Go Chen was furious. He swung the Son of Heaven's sword at the 4 clan masters. Unfortunately, although the sword's light could stabilize mountains and rivers, it had no effect on the 4 figures. Dongfang Qianghao continued, "We recognize that His Majesty has worked hard even if he didn't make any contributions, so we will give His Majesty 10 days to consider. If His Majesty kills Xiao Hua and abdicates, we will give His Majesty enough face and also make His Majesty the master of the Tushito Palace. If His Majesty doesn't kill Xiao Hua and abdicate at dawn 10 days later, then we will write the 4 great clans' declaration to exterminate Gaochen and attack the immortal palace first, then destroy the fortune gate and cleanse the land of our Confucian cultivator." With that, Dongfang Qianghao raised his hand and took out a piece of paper. He read, "The fake Sun clan of the Lin dynasty is not gentle in nature. Shichong Ziwei Chen, once a servant in plain clothes. Late in life, he disturbed the immortal palace. Concealed the previous emperor's selfishness, trapping our emperor in a trap. With lizards as the heart, jackals and wolves as the second nature. Close to evil, killing the loyal and good. Killing the elder sister and brother, killing the emperor and killing the mother. Gods and men are jealous, heaven and earth cannot tolerate. Harboring evil intentions, coveting divine artifacts. The emperor's beloved daughter, secluded in another palace, the alliance of thieves, entrusted with heavy responsibilities. Minghu. Huazi Meng did not do anything, Zhu Shu who is dead. Swallow pecks the imperial grandson, knowing that the Han dynasty is coming to an end. Knowing the rapid decline of Xia Ting. Today's emperor is tainted, his virtue is not reported, and he is guilty of 10 crimes. First, he indulged the Daoist sect, appeased the Hongmeng, left Penglai, and did not destroy the Daoist sect. Second, he observed the rise of creation, did not engage in war, and lived with it. Third, he used the name of a Confucian cultivator to confer the title of the master of the Wansu Palace. He was even more shameless, using the name of Thunder Master to commit immoral acts. Fourth, he used the Daoist sect's weapon to kill the elites of the Confucian cultivators, disrupting the peace of the 4 aristocratic families. Fifth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, causing chaos in the 9 states, and billions of lives could not be pacified. Sixth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he indulged the 9th princess in the mortal world, fell in love with the remnants of the Daoist sect, and caused chaos. Seventh, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he neglected the empress, and favored the Flower Medicine Palace. Eighth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he trusted close officials, causing chaos in the Tianji Hall. Ninth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he was indecisive. Seeking scriptures in paradise seemed like a grand undertaking, but in reality, he was defeated, extremely shameless. 10th, for the emperor's lack of diligence, he allowed the Buddhist sect to invade and expand the hidden immortals. From then on, the hidden immortals were not the hidden immortals of the Confucian cultivators. The 4 aristocratic families' Confucian cultivators were the old officials, the emperor. He received the emperor's achievements, and the kindness of the emperor's court. Sun Wei's joy and sorrow were justified. How could Yuan Junshan's tears be in vain? He used anger to calm the world. Because of the world's disappointment, he he followed the heart of the universe. He raised the banner of righteousness to clear away the Avilders. The south connected to the 100U, the north to the 3 rivers, the cavalry in groups, connected to the jade axis. The red millet of the hailing mausoleum, the accumulation of the warehouse is endless. The yellow banner of Jiangpu, how far away is the merit of restoring the country? The sound of the court moves, the north wind rises, the sword chi rushes, the south is peaceful. The mountain collapses with a whistle, the wind and clouds change color with a shout. With this to control the enemy, what enemy could not be destroyed? With this, what merit could not be subdued? The emperor's rank was either hiding immortals, or assisting the emperor's relatives, or being heavily entrusted with words, or receiving orders from the emperor. The words are still in the ear, loyalty will not forget the heart. A grain of earth is not dry, how can the 6 feet of solitude be supported? If he can turn the disaster into a blessing, he can send the past to the emperor's residence, and not abolish the emperor's order, he will be rewarded with the same title as the mountains and rivers. If he is attached to a poor city, wandering the wrong path, and ignorant of the signs of the past, he will be punished in the future. Please take a look at today's domain. Whose world is it? The above was adapted from Luo Binwang's declaration on behalf of Li Jingye against Wu Jiong. Dongfang Qiong Hao recited the declaration of the 4 great clans against Gaochen with a sonorous and forceful tone. It was like thunder or war drums. The area within 1,000 miles of Longevity Town was filled with grief and indignation. It was as if Dongfang Qiong Hao's 10 sins were true. Not to mention the mortals, even Xiao Hua secretly nodded after hearing this. This declaration was written very well. Anyone who heard it would feel that immortal Emperor Gaochen was not virtuous. The 4 great clans had no choice but to do this. All of the righteousness fell on the 4 great clans' side. After Dongfang Qiong Hao finished reciting the declaration, he didn't stop for a moment. His figure immediately disappeared, and the clan masters of the other 3 clans also disappeared. After the 4 great clans were gone, immortal Emperor Gaochen and the others looked at each other with a bit of dismay. It was very clear that the 4 great clans were using the banner of cleaning up the immortal palace to force immortal Emperor Gaochen to abdicate. If it was before, immortal Emperor Gaochen wouldn't hesitate to order his troops to destroy the Fortune Gate in order to protect the immortal palace. However, at this time, the Fortune Gate's wings were fully formed. Not to mention the immortal palace, even the 4 great clans couldn't be seen in Xiao Hua's eyes. How could immortal Emperor Gaochen dare to send troops to kill the Fortune Dao Palace? The more immortal Emperor Gaochen destroyed the Dao Palace, the more he would be killed by Xiao Hua. In the end, he would still have to abdicate. Especially today, in Longevity Town, if Xiao Hua dared to say he was second, no one would dare to say they were first. Who had the qualifications and ability to destroy the Fortune Gate? Because of this, the 4 great clans gave up on the 5 energy origin law and directly targeted Xiao Hua and immortal Emperor Gaochen's position. This was a blatant display of their ambition. If it wasn't for Gaochen abdicating and killing Xiao Hua, the innate 4 directions grand formation wouldn't have been activated. Immortal Emperor Gaochen was the leader of the immortal palace. After hearing the declaration, he immediately calmed down and sheathed the Son of Heaven's sword at his waist. He didn't even have the intention to discuss with Taibai Jinxing and Sun Jian. He simply returned to the sky above the tidal river temple, thinking about how to kill Xiao Hua or how to escape. Seeing immortal Emperor Gaochen's reaction, Sun Jian glanced at Taibai Jinxing. Taibai Jinxing's face was also filled with worry. He glanced at Xiao Hua and opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. Damn it! The golden-winged Great Peng laughed and shouted, "You humans are really interesting. If you want to fight, then fight. Why do you need to make a reason?" However, this declaration is really well written. This saint also wants to punch Gaochen a few times after hearing it. Ha ha ha. Xiao Hua coldly glanced at the silent Gaochen. There were currently 4 forces within 1,000 li of this space: the Confucian cultivators, the Buddhist sect, the Daoist gate, and the demonic race. If immortal Emperor Gaochen wanted to deal with Xiao Hua, He could only join hands with the Buddhist sect or the demonic race, just like how they suppressed the Grand Mist ancestor. But now, not to mention the Buddhist sect and the demonic race being on good terms with Xiao Hua, even the Grand Mist ancestor dared to appear in front of immortal Emperor Gaochen. How could immortal Emperor Gaochen deal with Xiao Hua? If he pointed his sword at Xiao Hua, he would only die a more miserable death. Therefore, Xiao Hua looked at Gaochen, pondered for a moment, and said, "Your Majesty, P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and thank you for all your support." Chapter 46-46. What's the matter? Immortal Emperor Go Chen's tone was indifferent and even a bit arrogant. It was as if he wasn't affected by the declaration at all. He didn't even feel the awkwardness and danger of his situation. He simply asked, "If you want to capture me and go to the 4 clans to claim credit, then you have made a mistake in your calculations." Xiao Hua was furious after hearing this and said, "Go Chen, don't think that just because you have the clear heavenly mirror, no one can do anything to you. You have the clear heavenly mirror and a 9th-grade immortal palace Wen Sheng. I also have millions of soldiers in my Kunlun mirror. If I want to capture you, it will be as easy as flipping my hand." "Master Xiao Lei, Master Xiao Lei." Tai Bai Jinxing hurriedly flew over and bowed. "If you have anything to say, please say it." Phew. Xiao Hua took a deep breath, but he immediately regretted it. He calmed himself down and pointed below, saying, "There are millions of mortals within 1,000 miles of the Longevity Town. They should be the first victims since the Longevity Town has been sealed off by the 4 great clans. Moreover, they are powerless and have no way to resist. Therefore, if possible, Your Majesty, please use the clear heavenly mirror at the right time to capture these mortals." "Who told you that my clear heavenly mirror can capture mortals?" Immortal Emperor Go Chen said coldly, "My clear heavenly mirror is the imperial artifact of the hidden immortal continent, Chenpage." Xiao Hua knew that he wouldn't reveal the secret of the clear heavenly mirror until the very last moment. Therefore, he wouldn't capture the mortals of the Longevity Town in front of everyone. Therefore, Xiao Hua coldly harumphed and ignored Huang Xiaolong. His figure flickered as he flew to the north and south, bringing all the Fortune Gate disciples into Shenhua continent. After all, the 40,000 disciples couldn't do anything in the innate 4 directions formation. They would only be fighting for air with the mortals of the Longevity Town. After everything was done, Xiao Hua waved his hand and called Wen Chu, celestial being, and the Thunderbolt Immortal to the front. He said, "Fellow Taoists, what do you think of the current situation?" Seeing that Xiao Hua had gathered his clones together, Feng Wu looked at the golden-winged rock and said, "Rock Sage, let's go take a look as well. Now that we're all on the same boat, let's help as much as we can." The golden-winged rock naturally didn't have any objections, and it flew over to Xiao Hua's side along with Feng Wu. At this moment, Wen Chu frowned and said, "We naturally have to break through the restrictions now, but all of our methods are useless in the face of this innate 4 corners formation. Perhaps only Reverend Yun's dragon item can do it." "It's a pity that Reverend Yun did not come with us, as we are currently trapped in the 4 directions formation, and we can't contact him," Thunder Reverend said with a wry smile. "Otherwise, I think we would be able to work together. The innate 4-way great array is too strange." Xiao Hua shook his head slightly. "Even that dragon artifact might not be able to succeed. Therefore, I'm afraid that we won't be able to break the formation by force. It's simple." The golden-winged rock smiled and said, "We can just capture Old Man Gaochen and hand him over to the 4 great families. As for what they said about first entering the immortal palace, then exterminating the Taoism sect, it's just an excuse. Now that the Fortune Gate is so powerful, the 4 great families might not have the energy to deal with the Fortune Gate. It's already good enough that they can deal with the military school in a short period of time. This is the 4 great families' original intention." Wen Chu smiled and said, "They want to borrow Master Xiao's hands to capture immortal Emperor Gaochen. In the future, they will use this as an excuse to join forces with the 100 schools of thought to exterminate the Taoism sect once again. The Dipankara archaic Buddha is determined not to interfere in this dispute. Xiao Hua raised his head and looked at the Buddhists who were reciting Buddhist scriptures with their eyes closed. He said, "I'm sure you've seen through the complexity of this matter. Of course. These old bald donkeys are cunning." The golden-winged roc sneered, "The four great families besieging the longevity town is due to the internal strife of the Confucian cultivators. Although the Taoism sect is involved, it has nothing to do with the Buddhism sect. They won't let out a single word. This has always been their style. When they have to bear the consequences, they will shrink back faster than anyone else. When there are benefits, they will fly faster than anyone else." That Mahavairokkana archaic Buddha probably felt that the sutra praying in nirvana this time wasn't good and knew that someone would cause trouble. That's why he didn't dare to come over and asked the Dipankara archaic Buddha to come over. Oh, this is called tribulation facing in the Buddhism sect. Seeing how the golden-winged roc wasn't interested in the Buddhism sect, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Actually, roc sage doesn't have to care about it. You just need to rest. How can this sage be compared to those old bald donkeys?" The golden-winged roc said proudly, "Naturally, this sage wouldn't care about the four great families targeting old man Gauchen. However, the four great families even schemed against this sage. How can this sage let this go? Moreover, this sage and Dragon Master Xiao don't know each other. This sage is very willing to befriend Dragon Master Xiao. Whatever Dragon Master Xiao wants to do, this sage will support it. Good." Xiao Hua laughed and raised his palm, saying, "A roc sage like this is also someone this Xiao is willing to befriend. Good." The golden-winged roc was overjoyed. He hurriedly flapped his wings and clapped with Xiao Hua's palm. After the palm strike, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Now that this Xiao has obtained roc sage support, why should I be afraid of this formation not being broken?" Instead, it was the golden-winged roc who was a little embarrassed and said in a low voice, "Master Xiao Lei thinks too highly of this sage. Previously, this sage and the Phoenix sage had already tried. We didn't have any effective abilities." Hearing the golden-winged roc being so straightforward, Xiao Hua didn't understand the hidden meaning in the human's words. He nodded and said, "While a single person can surpass others and do what 100 people can do. However, if 100 people work together, what they can do will surpass that of a single person. Breaking the formation isn't just a matter of abilities. It's also a matter of methods. We still need to work together to succeed." Seeing that the golden-winged roc still didn't understand, Xiao Hua said even more straightforwardly, "Also, this Xiao doesn't need any abilities to help, as long as roc sage has the heart. There are still 10 days until the deadline. In the end, if there is no other way, this Xiao can just keep the mortals in the longevity town into the Kunlun mirror. Isn't it just being trapped in the innate four directions formation? If nothing happens in 10 days, nothing happens in 100 days. If the four families have the ability to trap this Xiao for 100 years, hehe, there's no need for that." Feng Wu laughed and said, "As long as the Thunder Sound Temple and Fortune Gate don't return after half a year, they will definitely come to investigate. At that time, the four families will be in trouble." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "There's no need to wait that long. 10 days later, the four families will definitely make their move. After the Immortal Palace falls, that will be the time for the Four Directions formation to be activated. The ones who should be restless right now should be the Immortal Emperor, not us. Then why did fellow Daoist call us here?" The Celestial was confused when he heard this. "Naturally, I want fellow Taoists to look around and think of a way to break the formation," Xiao Hua explained. "Although this Immortal Emperor Gauchen is a little sinister, he is still Xinshin's father. If he controls the Immortal Palace, it will be the most beneficial for our Fortune Gate. If the four families control the Immortal Palace, not to mention the huge war that will kill many people, just the grudge between the Fortune Gate and the Nangong family will make our Fortune Gate fight with the four families sooner or later. Although the Fortune Gate is strong, the Tao Gate is not. After a long war, our Tao Gate will be destroyed. A single branch is not spring, but 100 flowers blooming is spring. Good. This sage understands." The golden-winged Great Peng nodded and said, This sage will go to the north to investigate and see if I can find any flaws. Seeing the golden-winged Great Peng leave in high spirits, Feng Wu and the others also cupped their hands and flew away. The clones understood that what Xiao Hua said was only a last resort. If they could break the seal and wipe out the 4 great clans, this was the best opportunity. The 4 directions formation surrounded the longevity town within 1,000 li. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept through and understood everything. The mountain range outside the town, the paddy fields, and the Liao River at the side of the Jiangchao Ridge were all clearly seen. In the following days, Xiao Hua did not dare to slack off. He opened his illusion breaker eye and scanned the 4 directions formation within 1,000 li, not missing a single spot. The more Xiao Hua looked, the colder his heart became. This 4 directions formation was indeed, as immortal Emperor Gaochen said, it was a Xiantian grand formation. It could not be compared to ordinary formations, defensive formations, or Buddhist formations. Within the clouds, there were no flaws at all. Even when Xiao Hua's illusion breaker eye's silver light beam fell into the clouds, it could not cause any fluctuations. In the end, Xiao Hua helplessly stopped and stood in front of the mountain range like a crouching bull. At this time, it was also a moonlit night. There seemed to be some wind and rain high up in the sky, but this wind and rain could not fall on the mountain range. Xiao Hua looked at the place where Liu Yi and Yuan Ya had a barbecue several hundred years ago. After several hundred years of wind and rain, this mountain range had changed a bit. There were fewer rocks and more trees. Even the cries of beasts in the forest had increased. However, in Xiao Hua's ears, the cries of the beasts in the night were still sorrowful and helpless. Hearing this, Xiao Hua's heart was also uncomfortable. In the distance of the mountain range, there were a few small villages. At this time, it should be night time, but many of the houses in the village were lit. Clearly, in these few days, some people had discovered that something was wrong, and the people were a bit anxious. Sigh, the Black Wind Ridge is not too far from here. If this 4 directions formation was a bit bigger, perhaps it could enclose the Black Wind Ridge. Xiao Hua thought to himself. However, since this 4 directions formation can even seal the power of faith, the teleportation channel should not be able to be used. Even if the Black Wind Ridge is here, it should not be able to be used. Thinking of the Black Wind Ridge, Xiao Hua's heart suddenly moved. He looked at Liao Jiang again. At this time, Liao Jiang was like stagnant water. There was no water flowing in, and no water flowing out. Previously, Xiao Hua had already used his illusion breaker eye to see that it was also sealed by the 4 directions formation. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Chijian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank all forms of support. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.